A very good morning to everyone. And thank you for being here. We're very happy that at least a lot of students have gathered so far. We are expecting the hall to be full very soon. On August 10th, 2020, there were a group of Dalit Christians who protested against, the fact asking for reservation, caste-based reservation. This was at the time of the pandemic, but in spite of that, there were Dalit Christians who were protesting about. They were also marking 70 years, a kind of an anniversary, because it was in 1950. August 10th, when the first president of India, Rajendra Prasad, actually, signed an ordinance saying that the constitutional provisions for SCs and STs did not apply to those who had converted to Islam or Christianity. So, since then, of course, in 2007, there have been many twists and turns to this story. And in 2007, there was a commission to look into the plight of Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims. And it was found that it was terrible because they could not avail themselves of the benefits of reservation because of this ordinance. And then there have been subsequently so many demands for this from the communities. And this is, in fact, the substance largely, and also much more, in terms of the content of the speech of our lead speaker today, James Ponnea. We also have another somewhat controversial issue that we will be dealing with, and that's about Sanatana Dharma. We've been talking about, it's been in the news recently, but there is, for people who imagine that is an ancient idea, it's interesting to note what the wonderful social scientist Eric Hobsbawm says, calls the invention of tradition. In the sense that, it was in the end of the 19th century with the Arya Samajis talking about Sanatana Dharma. And then that comes into conflict with a lot of other Sanatanis. So there is no real understanding of what exactly is this thing called Sanatana Dharma, except that it is based on a very Brahminical concept of Vedic and Upanishad thought. And in fact, at least 3 of our speakers do oppose Brahmanism as an ideology. And we have Professor Peter Thirumal, who will be talking about Brahminical, against, if you like, talking about Brahminical ideology. There's Brajranjan Mani, and also the filmmaker Rajesh Rajamani, in fact, who also, we will be projecting one of his films towards the end of this seminar, this colloquium in the evening. But this is also about, apart from caste, we are also looking at tribe, we're looking at gender. And tribe, as far as tribe is concerned, we had the pleasure of listening to Patricia Mukim, who was here yesterday to give us a lecture. And she will be speaking about, the SC status that is demanded by certain groups in this country. And last but not least, about gender, we have at least 2 people who will be speaking about this very important interface between caste and gender, and that is Sunena Arya, as well as Dhrubo Jyoti. Dhrubo Jyoti, I'm proud to say, is an alumnus of this college. And as you can see, we have a very wonderful lineup, very, very interesting lineup of people to speak here. Many of them, some of them journalists, some of them academics, some of them both, who are here to speak about these very interesting and very important issues. And I'm sure that there is a lot to learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the welcome address. Now I request Professor Akash Poem, member faculty of ACJ, to come onto the stage to explain about the colloquium.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this day-long colloquium. I would like to begin by stating that the need for conversation around caste, tribe, gender, and media emerges from the continuing lack of their representation in Indian newsrooms, which is primarily dominated by upper caste communities. The most recent survey by Oxfam and News Laundry found that out of 218 media outlets across print, TV, and digital media, 191 were from general category, and there were no SC/ST among the mainstream media houses. The report also noted that people from general category wrote over 60% of the byline articles compared to 5% from SC and ST and 10% from OBC category. This lack of representation, however, does not mean that print media by Dalit, tribal, and other marginalized communities has never existed. From Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's Mook Nayak in the 1920s to Central India's Adivasi magazine Gondwana Darshan in the 1980s. From 1920s to 1980s, communities have led initiatives and continue to assert their voices without much institutional support. In recent times, their number has grown multifold with many emerging digital media platforms, which have also resulted into increasing conversations around these issues in what is considered as legacy media or mainstream media. In 1978, the American Society of Newspaper Editors had passed a resolution for greater inclusion of minorities in American newsrooms. However, we know that such efforts have not been there in India. Private media houses are not bound to follow affirmative action policy like the state institutions. In such a scenario, how do we begin to think about this issue of newsroom diversity? At the same time, is diversity enough to address several methodological and epistemic concerns? The near absence of marginalized castes and communities over the decades have either resulted in complete invisibilization of their issues and voices, or produced predominant stories of victimization, misrepresented them, or continued to reproduce existing stereotypes. This dominance of stories of victimization also happens at the cost of invisibilization of stories of resistance and assertions. Which also presents these communities as powerless, weak, voiceless. One of the reasons behind continuing, misrepresentation and stereotypes is also obviously indeed the lack of diversity among the students and faculty members in higher educational institutes in general, and obviously journalism schools, both of which are sites of knowledge production. It is therefore a need of the hour to also critically look at pedagogical changes that journalism schools need. Lastly, as caste transcends religious and regional boundaries and intersects with discourses on gender and sexuality in Indian subcontinent, a critical understanding of caste will not only help us show us its omnipresent nature, but it can also help us become better journalists and storytellers. With this, I would like to welcome all of you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Akash Poem, and thank you, Nalini ma'am. Now that our phones are out of our sight, we are all geared up for today. Let us begin with our first session on identity politics in contemporary India. I request Professor Mohan Ramamurthy, Dr. James Ponaya, and Ms. Sunaina Arya to come up on the stage and take their seat.
This session is on identity politics in contemporary India. The two of the speakers with us is Dr. James Ponaya, and we have Sunayana Arya here. And this is a topic that's of interest in several ways, especially from the J school perspective and humanities perspective. We have a signature flagship program on covering deprivation, and students in about 2 months will be going to different parts of the country to report about people who are facing deprivation, who are facing challenges of marginalization and exclusion. So this colloquium provides them the necessary framework and academic inputs, insights, understandings, which will go to help them in reporting these stories with a lot of meaning, context, and depth. When we look at Dalit Christians, the issue of Dalit Christians, one of the things that strikes me is that you're, for generations, you're oppressed by religion, and then you try to escape it, try to find potentially another egalitarian religion where you could find a better life and inclusion. And there's also the role of the state to help them uplift and liberate and all that. And then after decades, the situation doesn't seem to be all that bright. These institutions, these structures have kind of let them down, and I think that's a very important issue to understand and unravel. So we have Dr. James Ponaya, who will be speaking about dissonances of Dalit Christians, nation state, and its emerging public in India. Let me introduce Dr. James Ponaya. Dr. James Ponaya is the assistant professor and head in charge of Christian studies at the University of Madras. His publications include The Dynamics of Folk Religion in Society, Pericentralization as Deconstruction of Sanskritization, 2011, Dancing Peacock, Indian Insight into Religion and Redevelopment, 2010, Identity, Difference and Conflict, Post-Colonial Critic, 2013, Committed to the Church and the Country, 2013, Psychospiritual Mentoring of Adolescents, 2019, and Culture, Religion and Homemaking in and Beyond South Asia, 2020. He was awarded a collaborative international research grant by the American Academy of Religions in 2015 and the Best Researcher Award of University of Madras in 2018. He was an International Connection Committee member, American Academy of Religions in 2019-2022. He's recently awarded Research Fellow in Religion and Culture by Christian Institute for Theological Engagement, chartered under USLID prerogative of the United Nations Treaty Series 49006-49007. He is one of the coordinators of ISAC, the Institute for the Study of Catholics in India, hosted by National University of Singapore. Over to Dr. James Ponaya.
So thank you so much for your nice words. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the invitation that you have given to me to come to this very prestigious institute to train journalists who come from different walks of life. I am so happy and delighted to talk to you about this particular topic, the Dalit Christians of India, and the kind of relationship that they enjoy with the state. My talk is going to be structured in the following way. I will give you a brief meaning of the term Dalit, which many of you may know, but I will problematize it. I'll give a statistics and historical overview of Dalit Christians. Then the question of conversion that took place among Dalits, especially I will talk to this accusation that Dalit Christians are rice Christians. Then the Dalit Christians' relationship with missionaries as well as with the British Raj. Then we will move on to some of the contemporary debates of how Dalit Christians are being treated by the nation state India. And I will also talk about a bit about how the violence against Christians in Kandhamal has a Dalit component to it. It's an important lens through which you need to look at what happened there. Then I will also look at some of the ways in which Dalit Christians have responded to this situation of discrimination by the state. I have 8 ways in which Dalit Christians have engaged in an active politics. And towards the end, I want to look at the emerging public in India, which is probably something very different. I have been working on it for the last couple of months, looking at it from the viewpoint of affect theory. How the public, the common public across the globe is increasingly becoming affective public. Public sphere by Habermas, many of you would know. And how there is a new development of being a public in the world today, which is that not so much by rational discourse, but by emotive, impulses. As in this context, what does it mean to be a Dalit Christian? And how does Dalit Christians contribute to this particular situation? I mean, how do Dalit Christians respond to this particular situation of affective public, So these are some of the things I want to share with you. I'm a professor, so I need to normally, kind of detail the things out. So it is going to be a long speech, but I'm also aware of the time frame, so I will probably cut short, go over a few points quite quickly. So that said, my dear friends, I will start off with my presentation. As you would know, the term Dalit, many of you know, is a Marathi word, come from a Sanskrit root, Dalita, which means split. All of us know this, broken, divided, etc. And the Constitution of India has another way in which they kind of label Dalits, namely the deepest classes are untouchables or scheduled castes. Now, when we speak of Dalit Christians, the first question that comes up in our mind is, what is their primary identity? Are they Christians first and Dalits next? Or are they Dalits first and Christians next? There are 2 camps of thinking in here. The conservative Christians, as well as the state, and some of the missionaries, very strongly held, including Father Jerome D'Souza, who was part of the Constitutional Assembly, in his deliberations, they strongly held that there is no caste system in Christianity. Christianity is a religion that believes in egalitarianism. Therefore, Dalit Christians are basically a religious category. But there is another camp, Dalit Christians, academicians, scholars, social activists, who look at Dalit Christians as a social category. Dalit Christians, in a way, embody all that other Dalits undergo: humiliation, suffering, discrimination, so on and so forth. Therefore, the state has one particular way of approaching Dalit Christians, as Christians first, and Dalit next. Therefore, their Dalitness or Dalit experience is subsumed into their religious category. Whereas Dalit Christians and others who ask for equal treatment of them with others, other Dalits, want to push their case for recognition and similarly compatible action from the state for reservation and other things. So this is very, very important for us today, that there are two ways in which Dalit Christians are being viewed and they are in conflict. I'm looking at some of the census data. As you would know, 2011 data says Dalits in India are 16.6% and STs are 88.6%. And between 2010 to 2011, interestingly, the decadal growth of Dalits in India has grown by 20.8%, whereas the overall Indian population had grown only by 17.7%. So that also is a matter of worry for the government, especially the Hindu-dominant Hindu communities, because Dalit population is growing fast, and if you allow them, reservation for Dalit Christians, then Dalits en masse will join Christianity. Therefore, Hindu population will decline. There are scholars who look at, the status of Dalit Christians, among the Dalits. Webster, based on various criteria, has come to conclude that 10 to 15% of all Dalits in India are Christians. And among the Christians themselves, Dalits really overpopulate. 2/3 of all Christians, or 3/4 of all Christians in India are Dalit Christians, are Dalits, basically. Therefore, then, Dalits need to be recognized as Christians who are socially discriminated, as I said earlier. Therefore, government should give them should open up affirmative action possibilities to them. So government should consider them as Dalits and take measures to overcome the situation of Dalithood. But however, that doesn't happen because Dalits do not really register themselves, Dalit Christians, not many of them register themselves as Dalit Christians. They are basically Dalits, but they practice Christianity. Therefore, there is a question of what we call double belonging. Interestingly, as I put there in the last point, Dalitness is a very, very important characteristic of Christianity itself in India. Because vast majority of Christians in India are Dalits, this particular character of Christianity has also been looked down upon. Namely, Christianity is a colonial religion, Christianity is a Dalit religion, and Christianity is a marginal religion. Now, all these perceptions of Christianity being a religion of the low caste, and Christianity being a religion of foreign faith, and Christianity being not the religion of the center, but on the periphery. If you look at the places where Christianity is spread, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Northeast, Goa, and they are all on the borders, on the margins. So as I was talking to one of the scholars from Delhi, he was telling me that what happens in the mainland doesn't affect Christians, and what affects Christians doesn't affect the people in the mainland. So as if they were on the borders, they were on the margins, so they live a different kind of a life. Anyway, that's another debate altogether. But the thing is, this perception comes to affect the Dalit communities. Therefore, they are treated with disrespect, they are being suspect, and they are insignificant. They are not important to the nation state. When we look at the origin of Dalit Christians in India, very interestingly, the first Christian wave, in India, which is St. Thomas Christians, from the time of, soon after the time of Jesus, there were never Dalits there. In Kerala, we did not have Dalits there for years. So even when the Portuguese came, they were not keen on converting Dalits. They were focused on mostly fishermen and high caste people. And it's only later on, 19th and 17th, little bit in 17th, otherwise 18th, 19th centuries, that we have Dalit Christians. So it is this Protestant missionaries who, in fact, brought in a lot of Dalit people into Christianity in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. So I have given the list there. But the question is, why this Portuguese or even early Christians were not keen on getting Dalits? Because their perception towards the whole caste system and the untouchability was one of India is a hierarchical society. And in this hierarchical society, if you really approach the lowest, then you will not have much impact. So better to approach people on the top. Then there will be a trickle-down effect. Automatically, people at the lowest rung of society will automatically come into the Christian fold. And probably that proved too in Goa. If you go to Goa, you will realize the same surname. You have Brahmins, Kshatriyas, fishermen, and Dalits. So that's the approach that they had. Therefore, they did not even. The Portuguese and the early missionaries did not pay attention to the conversion of Dalits. But it is later, it is the Protestant missionaries who had focused on converting Dalits. There again will come how it took place. Therefore, we have a mass conversion, Churas in Punjab, Malas and Madigas from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and Parayas from Tamil Nadu and Pulayas from Kerala. So they were all Dalit Christians converted mainly by the Protestant missionaries. Now, as I told you earlier, there's a huge debate today whether Dalit Christians are rice Christians, whether they converted to Christianity because of some benefits, And the scholars tell us that probably that's not the case. And I have given an example of Dick Koyman's work, which says during famine, especially, Dalits converted back to their religion. It's not exactly Hinduism, but their own folk religion, because they didn't want to incur the wrath of the deities. So they want to appease gods because they thought famine took place, or different diseases struck them because they displeased their gods and goddesses. Therefore, they would convert back. So during crisis time, in fact, there is a reverse conversion back to their original religion. Therefore, we cannot hold we cannot support the argument that Dalits were rice Christians, number one. Number two, Webster and other scholars also point out how reluctant the missionaries were to convert Dalits. And therefore, I have done some research, and then you see Dalit mass conversion took place not because they were offering rice and offering money to the Dalit communities, but because there were critical Dalit leaders who, for some reason or the other, I will give you some of the reasons, decided to convert to Christianity. In fact, I have one quote which I not have it here. One of the Dalit leaders goes to the missionaries in Ongole district in Andhra Pradesh and asks the pastor, "Please convert us. With sweat on our face and blood on our hand, we will work for you." And they were insisting that they should become Christians. And we are told that Christianity for them is a new religion that gave them a new life, a new status, a self-respect, so on and so forth. So that is the reason why Dalits became Christians in big numbers, because they experienced new social religious identity. Because, as I put there, Christ gave me Bagri, the turban, a symbol of respect, in place of dust. And Nirmal, another scholar, says, Dalits experience recognition, liberation in Christ, who embrace their Dalitness, who they believe Jesus Christ is like a Dalit, broken, died on the cross, that he was a person who was rejected, a person who was despised, who was humiliated, etc., etc. So many Dalits today then see in Jesus their own experience of suffering, pain, etc. Of course, it's a hermeneutical reading, however, though. Webster also says that Dalits became Christians because of what Protestant Christianity believed, namely, Christianity is a religion that emphasizes individual salvation. So I am personally saved by Jesus Christ. Therefore, there's a personal healing. There's a personal experience of God, which has given me certain sense of respect. Today, therefore, as a Christian, I have become a child of God. I am one with others, all Christians. Therefore, there is no discrimination. And this truth of Christianity, they said, is different from the falsity of Hinduism, which is based on a differential society. People are different. People are, basically radically different from one another. So caste disparity is inbuilt into Hinduism, whereas unity, egalitarianism is inbuilt into Christianity as a religion, as a philosophy, as an ideology. There are various studies done why Dalits were converted. As I've said earlier, it gave them self-respect, dignity, freedom from bondage to landlordship, personal dignity. And so one scholar says Dalits now could see in Christianity the possibility of human betterment, of education, of concern, of help in the crisis of famine, of friends in court. Some of the missionaries did, argue for Dalits to restore their land back from the landlords. Okay, in North India. As a result, interestingly, Dalit population grew from 12,46,000 to 6,20,000 in 1931. As I put there the statistics, there was an increase of almost 35% in Christian population among Dalits from the year 1921 to 31. So this became really scary for the people who wanted to define India as a Hindu nation, So because the overall population grew during this time only by 10%, but Dalit Christian population grew by 35%. You can see how different it is. So it's a huge increase during that time. Now, what have missionaries done to Dalits? What has the state done to, what does the British Raj has done to the Dalit Christians? So these are the questions that need to be also looked at when you look at Dalits and the state. The common view is that the missionaries and the state, they did a good work, They took care of them during famine, they gave them jobs, they gave them education, etc. And then, therefore, the British Raj gave them a separate electorate. So these are some of the measures that both the missionaries and the British did. However, you have critical view of what the Rupa Vishnanani says. So this approach failed to look at Dalits as a political category. This failed to look at Dalits as landless people. And this particular view continued, it was a failure on the part of missionaries and the British Raj to look at Dalits as a political category, as people who are landless, therefore empower them, That empowerment strategy was not, adopted by neither by the missionaries nor by the, British Raj, also by the nation state. Now let's come to the most controversial question of conversion. My dear friends, all of you know that conversion, anti-conversion law is something that is being talked about, and more often than not during elections time, when election takes place, during election campaign, this becomes very strong. And you will see in 2003 elections, I have quoted, some of the, posters, captions. One poster in Odisha showed a man, converting next to the bishop, and the bishop is being shown as the agent of the Pope. Therefore, then it simply means this: when you change religion, you change your nationality. When you change religion, you change your loyalty from India to a nation outside India. Therefore, then to stop conversion and to save the nation, to stop people changing religion and to save the nation, then you should really introduce something different to stop conversion itself. Therefore, the anti-conversion bill, which is paradoxically known as freedom of religion bill, was introduced all over in different parts of different states of India, including Tamil Nadu. So that prohibits conversion from one religion to another by use of force, inducement, or fraudulent means for matters incidental thereto. Therefore, a divine displeasure also could be seen as an inducement. If, as a preacher, somebody goes and tells the people, if you don't become Christians, you will go to hell, it simply means that you are actually inducing them, Therefore, that person can be put behind the bars. So it's simply, the anti-conversion bill in every way, wanted to prevent people coming into Christianity. And interestingly, the anti-conversion bill, wherever it was implemented, let's say Orissa, UP, MP, etc., along with the anti-conversion bill, when it's implemented, there is another thing that is taking place simultaneously, namely the movement of Gar Vapsi. People have to come back to, Hinduism. So why does this happen? This happens because right from the very start, including Gandhi, had a very, very negative opinion towards Dalits. I have given a very interesting quote there. Why would you preach gospel to a cow? Well, some of the untouchables are worse than cows in understanding. I mean, they can no more distinguish between the relative merits of Islam, Christianity, Buddhism than a cow. So then it simply means that the framers of Indian Constitution did not consider Dalits as people who have agency, who can decide their own destiny. They thought they are immature, they are not, they are ignorant, they are not, their intellect is not properly grown, they are not able to discern. Therefore, we need to choose for them. Therefore, they cannot change their religion. If they change their religion, they will lose their status as Dalits. Dalit Christians have very, very ambivalent, relationship with the state, because the state itself has, in its preamble, as we know, proclaimed that this is a state that will secure for all citizens justice, equality, liberty, etc., and fraternity. But however, the 1950 presidential order, which Dr. Nalini was talking about, simply denotifies Dalit Christians, Dalit Muslims, and at that time Dalit Buddhists as Dalits. The situation changes for Buddhists and Jains and others, or Sikhs later, but for Muslims and Christians it does not change. I will skip this. Now, what Dalits have done to overcome the situation of discrimination by the state? They have done a number of things. One is Dalits feel that Dalit Christians, unlike other Dalits, undergo fivefold discrimination. So this feeling is very strong among Dalits. As a Dalit Christian, I am being discriminated by the state, by the caste Hindus, by Dalit Hindus in general, and by one's own Hindu Dalit subgroup. If I am Paraya, Pallak Hindu will also oppress me, and also other caste Christians. Therefore, Dalit Christians have this particular understanding that they experience fivefold discrimination. So in order to get back what they lost, they have engaged in various activities. So I have listed some of them. The NCDC, National Council of Dalit Christians, it's a non-denominational group which was established in 2005. And they have taken to court. They have filed affidavit in the court. 1950 already was challenged in Madras court and went to the Supreme Court, as you would know. And so the argument is that Dalit Christians are not Dalits in the first place. Therefore, then when somebody discriminates them as untouchable, then then they cannot appeal against it because they are not Dalits. So the POA Act, Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1976, doesn't apply to Dalit Christians. So some of these things being contested, and they also say that in the Article 15.1, which says no discrimination on the basis of religion, goes against this 1950 order. And then Article 15.4, which says nothing shall prevent the state from making any special provision for ACs and STs, also in a way is, 1950 order is also in a way against this Article 15.4. As ma'am already mentioned, we have a number of commissions, constituted by the federal government to look at what can be done for Dalit Muslims and Dalit Christians. And as late as October 2022, the government has not given green signal yet. In October 2022, government affidavit said the Mishra Commission has absolutely, it is very, very flawed because it was composed within four walls. It does not have enough empirical data to prove that Dalit Christians and Dalit Muslims are being discriminated. Therefore, government has again appointed another commission, Balakrishna Commission, October 2022, and the Supreme Court said, we'll give you only 1 year to, finish your inquiry and submit the report and make a decision on it, etc. As I was telling, Dalit Christians simply did not, sorry. Yeah. So what has Dalit Christians done to overcome the situation? So I want to list some of them. One is there's greater unity among Dalit Christians today. I know they have transcended class, caste, regional divide, etc., and come out as one group, one entity to ask for reservation. They have also collaborated with the Muslims and other Dalit communities. They have also elicited the support of Christian leaders and caste Christians. They have become much more aware of different forms of discrimination among Christian communities across Dalit communities across India. And they have networked with human rights activists, secularists, and communists. They have taken legal routes, as I told you earlier, and this particular situation has propelled them to do international lobbying and advocacy. As you would know, they also have gone up to UN Human Rights Commission and committed against caste system as a racism, etc., etc. So finally, I just want to make this point, then I will stop, then we can probably converse a little later. What Dalit Christians have done is today to respond to this, what I said earlier, to the affective public. Affective public is a very interesting concept, proposed by Zizi Paparishi in his work 2004, which says the contemporary society is becoming more and more affective. What does it mean? It simply means there is an relational interaction that takes place in the public domain. This interaction is not driven not so much by communicative rationality, but by emotive resonances. I will skip all of this. Maybe we have time, we can discuss it later. With this, I will stop. The politics of religious nationalism produces affective publics across the globe today. You see it in the US, you see it in India. By creating among religious majority, a sense of fear and threat. Fear and threat towards the other, the ethnic other, religious other, and the caste other, whatever. Therefore, as a result, the other gets minoritized. They are not merely minorities, they are minoritized. Simply, it means that minorities are people with a privilege, minoritized people are people with a contempt. People have come to take away my rights, therefore they are being looked down upon. They are being always suspicious, looked at with suspicion. And therefore, they are enemies within. So today, Dalit Christians have in a way become minoritized in India. As a result, religious nationalism appeals for unity among people to respond to the situation of being we are disprivileged in our own country, we have been discriminated against, therefore we have to overcome. The minorities have taken over the privileges. So this is a campaign against the minorities, including Dalit Christians. Therefore what we do is to defend and protect who we are. Therefore demonize the other. Nothing new about it. Always, wherever there is a conflict of majoritarian-minoritarian conflict, this is what it is. But the current situation, the digital media, as you are all people from media background, is that there is the intensification and heightening of such feeling that occur constantly and simultaneously across. In no time, you have a torrent of responses, either positive or negative, across time and space, which makes the contemporary society very, very affective public. Therefore, then what Dalit Christians have done is they have very thoughtfully become more political. They have managed to evolve an affective counter public by enlisting the support of a range of interlocutors and stakeholders across India and abroad or beyond. The question is then, is this campaign of advancing counter public, is it constructive or disruptive? That's a huge question. To that, my answer is, I mean, I read the guy, I read this particular sentence to make it clear. While the discourse of religious nationalism distances the citizens from the foundational document of the Constitution of India, the performative narratives of affective counter public advanced by Dalit Christians bring the nation state closer to the spirit and promise of Constitution and the fundamental values enshrined in the preamble of India. I'm talking about the fundamental values of justice, fraternity, equality, etc. Therefore, while religious nationalism takes the nation 5 steps backward, Dalit activism or Dalit Christian activism pushes the nation 1 step forward to make India and the people of India more inclusive and democratic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Our next speaker is Sunaina Arya, and she will be speaking about media and marginalized women, critical reflection. As a J school, students, when they pitch stories, and we have, discussions about what needs to be covered and how invariably, it leans towards, writing and reporting about marginalized communities and women. And in our college, we have over 60% of students are women, and there's a strong sense of awareness of these issues, and it keeps coming up, whose stories are we telling, and also leads to the voiceless, and then diversity and all the related issues. And in that context, I think the media and marginalized women, I think this subject is very important. Let me introduce the speaker. Sunaina Arya is a pioneer in Dalit feminism, and her research works have been instrumental in theorizing Ambedkar's feminism. Her book, Dalit Feminist Theory, a Reader, Routledge 2020, serves as a textbook for gender, caste, Ambedkar, South Asian studies in institutions globally. She has been awarded an honorable mention in the Bluestone Rising Scholar Prize 2019 for her article Dalit or Brahminical Patriarchy, Rethinking Indian Feminism. She co-edited the gender special issue of Caste, a global journal on social exclusion, with her powerful editorial, Theorizing Gender in South Asia, Dalit Feminist Perspective, published by Brandeis University, Massachusetts. Sunaina has been invited to present her research at prominent universities, namely Columbia, California, Northwestern, Georgia, Texas, British Columbia, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and others. She also serves on the committee for the Just Futures Initiative, JFI, in Nepal, which is supported by Ford Foundation. Over to Sunaina.
Short people problems. Hello. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are having a nice time here. So, but little trigger warning, I'm going to talk about violence against Dalit women. And the warning is more for me because I come from the Dalit community. And it's really traumatic to, work on Dalit feminism while coming from that kind of, situatedness. So my presentation is called, titled as Media and Marginalized Women, a Critical Reflection. Here I want to talk about three issues, three cases: Hathras, Khairlanji, and Bhavri Devi. Everybody of you, I think, are aware about it because you are journalism students and scholars. And then I would like to, relate this to Dr. Ambedkar's analysis of caste system, which helps us understand why what this is happening in our society today. So, I am presenting these cases from one of my articles, Theorizing Gender in South Asia. There I started with, saying that the present South Asia, the present picture of South Asia does not depict an advancement on human rights of Dalits, specifically of Dalit women. What is more disturbing is that the caste norms and practices against Dalit women have not disappeared in spite of laws against them. And it's not just in India, it's in all over South Asian countries. And they are the raison d'etre, they are the basic reason, fundamental reason for exploitation of Dalit women even today. And so we can call it in another way that the past, what was the past pre-independence and pre-constitution and even before, that is still alive in the present with modified practices. So I would talk about these issues and emphasize on the differences in the understanding and how you receive the information about these cases, which are different from the usual cases of violence and rape. So, for example, in on September 29, 2019, the Hathras case happened. And what was really disturbing and was that, a woman was not just raped. Her tongue was cut out, her spine was broken, and then, and there was an attempt to murder as well. And along with this, this is from the rapist action, they try to do this. But as a society, as a system, what we have also observed in this case is that there was no protection to Manisha's family while Savarna people were mobilizing you all know that 4 Kshatriyas, Rajput men from 4 neighboring villages have came together to support the rapist. And they are having this meeting in the same village where there is no protection to this family who has lost their daughter, as well as they are fighting for justice. That is one thing. And then there were hassles and delays involved in every step of the case. Registering the case, media coverage of the crime, we all know how it just spilled out from one journalist, and that is why it the video got viral, and that's how everybody got so scared this is happening. And people went really uncomfort. It was really uncomforting for all the people. And perhaps it is also said about the Manipur cases that maybe because the video got viral, that is why the media is not now covering it. Otherwise, they might have just ignored it. So perhaps similar was the case with Hathras, because we see as a system there was hassles and delays in every step. Registering the case, media coverage, providing medical care, initiating the investigation, and then the police brutality and threats of Savarna men with failing status apparatus resulted in nationwide outrage. So because of all of that, the media and a lot of discourse and discussion and so much of sensitization through social media, people got aware, and then like they started protests, hashtag Hathras Horror, hashtag UPCM resign, all of that. And so this is 2019. And in 2006, September 29, the same day, Karalanji case has happened where a woman and her daughter, Dalit woman and her daughter, were along with two sons, like a girl, her two brothers, and mother. They were stripped, paraded naked in the village, and the women were gang raped before they all were murdered. So, you see, it's not just sexual violence, it's attacking their sense of dignity, sense of respect, sense of, like humanity. So, this had happened in 2006. So, going back to past, in 1992, Bhavari Devi's case, what had happened? Like, they are having this sexual kind of relation, which is like, it's rape. So the difference between rape and a sexual intercourse would be of consent. So because there is no consent, so that is why it was rape. So in Bhavari Devi's case, a man, his son, and his son-in-law, like people who are blood related in this way, in a usual circumstances of a patriarchal society, they would not like to, have sexual relations with the wife or the sexual partner of this, the men involved in this case. But these men, like, like how a father-in-law and a son-in-law and then a brother-in-law, how can they have sexual relation with one woman? So they are transcending the patriarchal norms in this case, and they are gang raping together a marginalized women, because it is not just about gender. It is also about the woman's positionality at the intersections of gender and caste. So I want to highlight from this presentation that we need to understand the atrocities against Dalits or the issue of the caste as a whole should be seen with its interrelatedness of gender. And that on that will come on a little briefly. And then and in the, even after this worldwide protest, like, the protest crossed national boundaries after the Hathras case. Even after that, in the same month, so worldwide agitation against Hathras case could not prevent similar incidents of gang rape and murder of a Dalit woman by Savarna men. The same month, an 8-year-old girl was raped in Balrampur after Hathras, a teen raped in Bulandshahr, in Azamgarh, another rape again in Hathras district itself, in UP, the same time. Like, so we see like why the protests are also failing. So I want to highlight that this is happening and nothing is working because the basic foundation of our society is to deny dignity to Dalit women and deny agency to women in general, and how, any kind of assertion of Dalits for equal human rights is seen as an invitation to rape, to violence, to murders, to gang rapes, and to other drastic forms of violence. So, see, like Dalits are killed for wearing jeans. You see, in one village, one Dalit man was killed because he was wearing jeans. And one person was killed because he was riding horse on his wedding. And people were killed for eating ghee, which is rarefied butter. So think, what are these issues? Like, can you just imagine, like you step out of your home because you're wearing sari or something and somebody just shoots you because you're wearing sari? That like is such kind of cynicism. You need to do some kind of act. So it is not just violence, act of violence as per se. It is the mentality of the caste system in your head that you believe that Dalits do not deserve human rights and Dalits are not humans. And that is why you go up to that level that, if you kill them, if you gang rape them, if you murder them, it's not wrong to do that. And also, because of seeing the system, how system functions, you also know that you can easily get away from that because the entire system works in that way, as we have seen in these issues. So, Bhavari Devi's case, I think it is important to point out again, I think has been said many times, that how, this Rajasthan High Court's judge had stated that she is unrapeable. So the case of rape is not valid in Bhavari Devi because she is a Dalit. So because she is a Dalit woman, her agency to give or withdraw consent, as I mentioned before. So if you give consent, then it is sexual intercourse, consensual intercourse. If you withdraw consent, then it is a rape, right? So, but in order to give or withdraw consent, you are supposed to be recognized and respected as an equal human person. And because she is a Dalit person, she is said to not have the agency by the High Court judge. And that is why her withdrawing consent or her giving consent that did not matter. So if a High Court judge is making a statement like this, we know what is the system in which we are living. Like, we believe that, constitutional morality and the Indian constitutional system and the legalities are, very progressive. And even in that progressive space, perhaps the most progressive space, we have people who make statements and judgments like that. And why? Again, I am saying these should not surprise us still, because the foundation of our society is Brahminical patriarchy. Brahminical patriarchy, I'll just try to explain it in very simple ways. There are two very basic factors of Brahminical patriarchy. One is endogamy. Endogamy is marrying within the same caste, and I suppose everybody would agree that here, if you go to marry or choose your partner outside of your caste, it is not simply accepted. And in Nepal, which is a Hindu Rashtra, into September 2019 itself, there was a intercaste marriage, and because of the intercaste marriage, so a Dalit boy who married a so-called upper caste or Savarna girl, he and his 3 friends, they were killed and their bodies were found after many days in a river. Because they dared to go beyond endogamy. They dared to, they dared to believe that they can have a partner from a different or so-called upper caste. So, and this is not a new thing. Like, these things are just in the reports. These things which, are like which we are able to hear. These are some of the things which are able to reach our ears and eyes. But we all know, like, as students of journalism, as, faculties and, scholars working on these issues, we know that what is the percentage of, the cases being actually reported. And then how many people hesitate even to go to report. And then who are the people, like in the police station sitting, who would always, discourage you to report. They'll be like, why don't you sort it out? And then there will be people who have power and wealth, and mostly people who are landlords or who have possessions. They come from particular backgrounds, and they would also try to, buy justice for themselves. So even when the judiciary might function properly, then also the entire system works in that way that each and every person almost believes in the basic societal norm, that is Brahminical patriarchy. That is why everybody pushes that forward, and this system ensures that anyone going against caste norms, intercaste marriages, even like wearing jeans by Dalit man, riding horse, eating ghee, like it was prohibited long, long ago for Dalits. During Ambedkar time, Phule time, people were not allowed to eat ghee. And even in today's time, people are being killed for that. So, endogamy, intra-caste marriage. Intra-caste marriage, that is called as the essence of Brahmanism, the essence of caste in India. And Dr. Ambedkar explained it very nicely, and I think this will take more time, but I would try to sum it up quickly. So, endogamy functions on numerical equality. Numerical equality is, like for example, I'd say, suppose there are 100 people in one particular caste, like just for example, Kshatriya community. So if there are 50 women and 50 men, then the numerical equality is, maintained. And if one of the persons, like if the man dies, for example, then there will be 49 men and 50 women, and there will be one woman extra in that community who will be a reason for imbalance. So this is numerical, equality. That is how endogamy is maintained. So I want to argue, like it's Dr. Ambedkar's argument, that, endogamy has been the essence. He called it essence because caste system was to be maintained through patriarchy. So how, this is what I'm talking about. So if one man dies, the woman is extra, and Ambedkar calls it surplus woman. So the problem of surplus woman has to be sorted now. Otherwise, this woman might, link with another man, and then there will be further imbalances. So that is why Brahmins at that time, not today's Brahmins. So I'm not against Brahmins, against Brahmanism. So Brahmins came up with the idea of sati. So the extra woman, the surplus woman would be burned alive. So problem solved. Like just burn the person away, problem solved, no issues. And people would say why I am talking about it today, because sati doesn't happen now. In fact, Mahatma Phule's, like Jyotirao Phule's work in 1848, 1854, he did, a lot of work to, ban sati and started houses for widow. So I am saying that why it is relevant today, because even today we see that the reverence of the idea of sati is still prevailing in today's time. How? So I have put some cases here in my article on page number 15. So temples which were built in name of sati victims are still maintained. Like you must have heard of Sati Anusuya. So she was a sati, and she's become a goddess because she was a sati. So Sati Anusuya temple is there, and it is still maintained. And where special prayers are held twice a day, glorifying sacrificed women of the past, of the past as Sati Mata. Madhya Pradesh state had reported such cases. Cases like there were cases where people said, it may be sati. Like, so one person said, like, in one case, a man said, I am so proud that my sister, became sati. And the village people were saying that, I don't know what happened. This woman, as long as her husband was burning, her husband's body was burning, some spirit came into her and she just jumped into fire. So that kind of narrative was there in the village. And some of the people were like, yeah, we heard about it, but we were not present in that case. So such cases are reported in 2006, 2002. Uttar Pradesh had such cases reported in 2005, 2002, 1999, 1994. Maharashtra witnessed a suspected sati case in 2015. So we see like this is still being practiced. And I am not saying, I'm not claiming it because of course I was not present there, but these are from the reports which I got. And obviously I didn't get it from the mainstream media. So sati, that is one way. Another way of maintaining numerical equality was widowhood, enforced widowhood. And what happened in enforced widowhood is like, so a widow had to alienate herself from all kinds of colors, festivals, delicious food, daylight, wedding ceremonies, deity worships, and any such occasions regarded as sacred. Why? And she had to live like, wear this white sari, bald her hair, shaved her hair. So she had to live in such conditions where she cannot, encounter other men. And even if she encounters in some way, she would not be found, attractive or, a suitable match for a man because she is bald. Like, you just imagine, no, like a patriarchal man doesn't like a woman with shaved head and like with no makeup, I mean, like no colors, white. And then also she is supposed to live her life in some kind of, ceremonial prison because she cannot go to festivals, she can't do anything which is happening, which makes people happy, and she cannot even go in daylight. So that is like, so she is living in that kind of dark dark prison. And so in this way enforced widowhood has sustained the issue of the issue of numerical equality. But what about those cases when a woman dies and not a man? So like then there will be 49 women and 50 men. So again there will be a problem of surplus man. So because the rule makers were men, they will not say let's die and burn ourselves because your wife is dead. So yeah, because we want equal society of, equal as in like the number of men and women, heteropatriarchal norm, equal numbers in one caste. Otherwise, the caste norms will be breached. So that is why they're like, okay, what to do? Because even Jyotirao Phule is saying, have you ever heard a man committing satta? Yeah, so... and Dr. Ambedkar also talked about it. So because men were the rule makers, they did not, obviously they will not make a rule to kill themselves. And also they did not make a rule to become a widower and live a life with, shaved hair and like no festival, no tasty food, I want chicken. Right, so that is why they came up with the idea of child marriage. So, same caste, another generation. So a girl child from the same caste will get married to this widower man, so that the widower man is not, deprived of his marital life because he is the god in our patriarchal society. So that is how numerical equality had been maintained. And so patriarchy, like these were the ways of, controlling women's sexuality. Sati, widowhood, child marriage. So see, women were not asked, do you want to die? I mean, do you want to live as a widow? Are you okay to get married when you are 6 years old? No woman is asked, like, but men are deciding for herself. So the control of sexuality of women were only means to sustain caste system. And that is why the ideas of patriarchy in our society, we are not able to grapple it properly from liberal perspective or Marxist perspective, because this is the foundation of our society. Even you see at Mandal agitation, there were women who were holding placards, "We don't want unemployed husbands," because they could not imagine getting married to outside of their caste. So that is the norm. And this is how Brahminical patriarchy functions. So Brahminical patriarchy is not a patriarchy of Brahmins, but the inherent link of caste with the patriarchy is Brahminical patriarchy. And it gives graded inequality. Graded inequality is like a Brahmin man, they could not think about, LGBTQIA, of course, because that would create another problem for them, because the offspring will, like, how would you think about the offspring? Like, homosexual love is not supposed to produce, kids of your caste. So how will it be maintained? So that is why Brahmin man on the top, then Brahmin woman, and then Kshatriya man on top of Kshatriya woman, but under Brahmin woman. So that is why it is graded inequality in our society. So the respect, dignity, and the value of a person is given as per their position in that graded hierarchy of Brahminical patriarchal system. So so this is one very major aspect of our society, like the caste system. And second thing is, there were practices of Devadasi, Jogini, there are so many other names, where young Dalit girl childs were devoted to temples, saying that they are the chosen ones, and then they would be sexually exploited by the temple priest. So from the slave of God, Devadasi, she eventually becomes Gavdasi. So everybody starts, raping her, and like the kids born out like from those kind of rape were not accepted by anyone. So they also ended up into the professions like so-called sex work or prostitution. So that is another way how Dalit women were denied dignity in the Brahminical system. I would just like to show you an image for this. Yeah, so I'll just show this image is on page number 125 in this book. And this is art by Savi Savarkar. This professor is at Delhi College of Art. This art is called Devdasi with Crow. So there we see there are marks on her belly, like she's pregnant and she has already aborted. So like stitch marks, and and then there is a crow, black crow, sitting on her head. So and that is also why I chosen this to be the cover of my book, because this caste may, like the crow may represent that how a Dalit woman's life is determined by the casteist hierarchy. And that is why what we need is Dalit feminism, and Dalit feminism is not an answer to Dalit patriarchy. I have written an article about it. Dalit patriarchy is an illogical concept. There are logical flaws with it that you can read. And so Dalit feminism is not a feminism of the Dalits, for the Dalits, or by the Dalits. Dalit feminism is an answer to the patriarchy which is inherently related with caste. So because patriarchy in South Asian societies is Brahminical, that is why we need an adjective Dalit with feminism. So like Dalit feminism is an answer to Brahminical patriarchy. It is not for Dalit women. So with this, I want to thank you for this privilege. I am really happy to be here. And if any questions, I'd love to talk about it. And you can also contact me and ask me anything. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers and our moderator for this insightful session. Thank you, sir. We are now open to questions from the audience, and due to time constraints, we would like you to ask pointed and precise questions. And while the mic is occupied, you can also write down your questions and raise your hand so that we can collect your questions and hand them to the moderator. It's 11:11, and we might go for a break in 5 to 6 minutes. So we almost have 5 minutes for the questions.
Yeah, we'll have, yeah, we can have more questions, and also I encourage students to interact with our speakers during the tea break as well, and subsequently. Yeah, we have a first question. Please write, if you have questions, you can write it on a piece of paper and it saves time. Yeah.
Good morning. My question was, in all these incidents, there was a lack of agency among women. So, do you think a representation in the legislature we still have, but there's no intersection between it because there's no reservation for women, Dalits as such. So, will representation ensure a voice for them, or is this measure of representation failing because we are not still able to represent these people in the larger realm? So what do you think would help?
Yeah, you can please address a question to the speaker. Mention who you want.
Thank you for your question. Yes, one thing is like, yeah, I forgot to mention one thing. Like, Dalit representation in media editorial board is 0.01% in India. And that is also why we know that there is no Dalit perspective or anti-caste perspective, because caste is supposed to be their problem, even in gender discourses. So caste is supposed to be only Dalit women problem. So representation surely will help, but at the same time, I think one more important thing with representation is one's perspective. Like, we know that there are Dalit people in, right-wing forces who believe that they did something wrong in their previous birth, and that is why they are born as the broken people, as sir has mentioned, right? So that kind of understanding we don't need. We need an understanding that each and every person, like what we have in our constitutional morality, if a person believes in constitutional morality, I think that is enough for them to be able to represent, Thanks.
Hello, am I audible? My question is also to ma'am. Every time such an incident occurs, like recently it has occurred in Manipur, there is a lot of controversy about how the media has treated that incident and presented it to the public, right? Because media is the one that presents the case to the country, to the entire nation as an audience. So according to you, what is an ideal way that media should present such cases to the public? What are the ethics and the moral grounds that have to be kept in mind? And so is the representation of such cases in the media right at the first place, in your opinion? And if not, what is the ideal way that the media should treat and present such cases?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think it's good that you're asking this question. Maybe we could discuss, also among you and everyone. I would say that, of course, I would agree that media is not presenting everything, like the overall mainstream media is not presenting everything as it is. And I think I do not need to, iterate what are the ethics for media. If you are a media student, you are a journalism student, you know what exactly you are supposed to do. And just do your work, honestly. I think that is enough. And of course, like as I mentioned, like for my philosophical perspective, I'd say because the foundation of our society is Brahminical, that is why we need an anti-caste perspective. And if it was capitalism, we would need, and anti-capitalism. If it were something else, then like we are heterosexual and homophobic country, so we have to be we have to be pro homo in order to challenge the homophobia. So, just to counter what is the problem. Like, whatever disease you have to find the medicine for that. That is the basic perspective. That is the ethics, I would say. Very simple. Thank you.
Yeah, one second. I'll take one more question from the back. And yeah, you and then one more question and we'll wrap up. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, sir, ma'am. So there was a caste survey done recently in Bihar. So do you think a pan-India survey like that would help address the challenges of the marginalized section? I want opinions from both the speakers, if possible.
I think caste survey is important. I don't think we can escape that. We have to work on facts, right? And facts do come from statistics. I suppose it will be done, objectively. I think it's from there we'll have to go as a nation, as a country, as a state, as a people. Thank you.
Yeah, Kavya and then Archana and then yeah, running out of time. Yeah, sharp question, please. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the session. So my question is, the discrimination towards Dalit come from their birth and their identity. So if the objective of conversion was to escape from that discrimination, how does it help to name them Dalit Christians or Christian Dalits? Because isn't it again creating a hierarchy within Christianity in India? Because I came across a lot of recent news reports which said that Dalit Christians are being denied of priesthood in India, especially in Tamil Nadu. So could you say something about it?
Yeah, certainly, see, birth is given, what we call involuntary, right? You don't choose to be born, you are born. But the problem is, once you are born, as a human animal, you become a human being in the society. So it's a society which constructs who you are, I have a lot of theories about it. So there is no way in which you say, that's what I am being born as, therefore I cannot become something different, okay? So depending on how you are being treated, you can choose to be what you are. So if you are saying that Dalit Christians or Dalits cannot change their religion because they are born as Dalits, then you are actually depriving them of their agency, So if all of us have freedom, I think freedom is the most fundamental thing in every human life, If I am entitled to freedom, then Dalits also should have that freedom. In fact, I forgot to advance another argument. Namely, if democratic India, nation state, is something that offered freedom to all citizens, and to deny the freedom of religion to Dalits, in fact, is a historical error. Because what has been done to Dalits, for centuries, for millennia, is supposed to be corrected by the Constitution of India, by the democratic India. In fact, you are bringing another restriction on Dalit Christians or the freedom of Dalits to choose their religion. So it's, I think, colossal, injustice to them, discrimination. In my view, if everybody is given freedom to choose a religion, Dalits also should be given. In fact, they should be given more freedom because they have been denied freedom.
Last question.
Ma'am, my question is to you. You spoke about Dalit feminism. So it was not clear to me whether Dalit feminism is happening right now. So please tell me about that, whether it's happening right now, and if it is happening, then how is it reaching to the rural Dalit women who actually suffer like way more than, I can't compare, I don't have numbers, but it seems from the news reports that they suffer way more. So how are they being educated about this? How are they being helped?
Thank you for your question, quite broad. Two things, facts. 10 Dalit girls are raped at least every day in India, just from the reports, NCRB. And Dalit women die 20 years earlier as compared to the non-Dalit women because of health issues. So data, yes. And so there are organizations, NGOs like Nation Federation for Dalit Women, and there are several other organizations which are working. Like the one I'm working with in Nepal is also they are they are bringing young Dalit girls from the most marginalized part of Nepal, and they are training them to become leaders, and then they would be training the other. So that is one kind of thing which I am involved in. And there are like so many activists like Ruth Manorma, Cynthia Stephen. There are so many people who have been working on the ground, and because of my constraints of being an academic, I cannot do that much because my philosophy discipline is regarded as you cannot go to the field, right? So, but I want to do that. And yeah, and Dalit feminism, well, it has been there. Like, see, Dalit feminism is simply anti-caste feminism. So, anti-caste perspective had been there in Phule Ambedkarite movement, Phule Ambedkarite theory and philosophy. And but the Dalit women were very active in Ambedkarite movements. And later on, these people, they went along with the feminist movement, Dalit women, and then they realized that caste is a major problem than patriarchy themselves. So 1990s, you can say that they started, raising their separate voice from the urban conference, and then later on from 1990s only, the 1992 and onwards, 95, they started writing about it. So they were there with the leftist, oriented women organizations, but the voices started coming out. And currently, like, there are many scholars who are working on Dalit feminism, quite a few who are coming from the lived experience, but it is happening. And I would not say that if you are a man, you can't be a feminist. So if you are a Brahmin, you can be a Dalit feminist. So you can transform yourself. I really appreciate that position of Sharmila Rege. She said anyone can transform, transform themselves as Dalit feminists. While I would say that the voices of the lived experience people will be more authentic, like Gopal Guru's argument. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll be into the second half of the first session, as Hariharan said. We have two very distinguished eminent speakers and two very important topics. Firstly, we have Dr. T.S. Shyamkumar, and he would be speaking about Sanatan Dharma and caste system. And I was just looking up an article in The Wire, and and also it's like in the news, and there's a lot of controversy about it. Many students must be following and looking at it closely. So we have an expert to shed light on it, and as usual, please keep jot down your questions. We feel very we wish we had more time for question answers and engagement, but there's a time constraint and we need to manage it. So please write down your questions, and it's easier and quicker. Let me introduce the first speaker. Dr. T.S. Ramkumar is a Sanskrit scholar, teacher, and writer in Kerala. He received his BA in Sanskrit Sahitya, MA again Sanskrit Sahitya, MPhil Sanskrit Sahitya from Sri Sankaracharya Sanskrit University, Kaladi. He received a PhD from Kaladi Sanskrit University for research based on expiatory rites in Keralite Tantra. His prominent works include, these are in Malayalam, so my Malayalam is, I'm a little weak on that. Forgive me if the pronunciation is a little this way or that. His prominent works include Aruda Raman, Vadikanum Jaikanumalla, Keraliya Tantra Parambaryam and Sabarimala Hindutva Tantrangalam Yadharthyam. He received numerous honors and fellowships, including the Ambedkar National Fellowship, Rajiv Gandhi National Fellowship, K.V. Sarma Endowment Award from Calicut University, and V.K. Narayana Bhattatri Endowment Award from Calicut University. His research articles have appeared in several national and international journals. Over to Dr. Samkumar.
Good morning, everyone. My paper is Sanatana Dharma and a Caste System. Udayanidhi Stalin's remark that Sanatana Dharma should not be opposed but should be eradicated like dengue and malaria has greatly enraged Hindutva forces. They have interpreted Udayanidhi Stalin's remarks as a call for genocide of Hindus. What is Sanatana Dharma? Dharma refers to the values, beliefs, institutions and systems on which life and the universe itself stands. Dharedi iti dharma. As Sanatana means eternal in Sanskrit, Sanatana Dharma refers to an eternal Dharma, the unchanging order of the universe. What is the eternal, unchanging order of the universe, Sanatana Dharma? According to scriptures which are accepted as authoritative by those who believe in Sanatana Dharma as a religion. In the Avastamba Dharma Sutra, an ancient Dharma Sutra, Dharma is given the meaning of ritual oblation. Dharma is also placed in the sense of righteous and legal. Dharma krityeshu vobhayojayet. Kritva vidyam yavadi shaknuyat veda dakshina mahare dharmado yada shaktihi. Abhastamba Dharma Sutra. In the Rigveda, Dharma means religious ordinance of rights. Tani dharmani pradhamanyasan. Chandogya Upanishad says that Dharma has 3 skandhas. The first skandha is yajna, study and charity. Tapas is the second. The third skandha is celibacy. Trayo dharma skandha yajno adhyanam dhanam idi pradamas taba eva didiyo brahmacharya acharya kulavasi tridiyo atyandam atmanam acharya kule avasadayan. Chandogya Upanishad. According to the Taittiriya Upanishad Shankara Bhashya, it is decreed that in order to attain the qualification of Brahma Jnana, one must perform Srauda and Smarta karmas. The Taittiriya also rules that only a saintly person can attain true self-knowledge through the cultivation of Srauda and Smarta rituals. Veda mucyatyeva madhikartavyopadesharambha prak Brahmatma Vijnana Niyamena Kartavyani Sraudasmartani Karmani Ityevam Artaha Anushasana Srudehe Purisha Samskarartatvad Samskritasya Vishuddha Sattvasya Atmajnana Sevovajayade. Taittiriya Upanishad Shankara Bhashya. According to the Dharma Sutras and Smridis, only Brahmins, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas can perform Srauda Smarta karmas. Only Brahmins are allowed to study the Vedas and perform yajna in it. Looking at like this, it is clear that Dharma described here is applicable only to Trivarnikas. In Manusmriti and Yajnavalkya Smriti, Dharma means Varna Dharma. Bhagavan Sarva Varnanam Yadavadanu Purvashaha Andara Prahavanam Ja Dharmam No Vaktumarhasi. That means sages request to Manu to instruct the 4 Varnas like Brahmins, etc. and other castes as well. Sages approach Yajnavalkya and request him to recite Varnasrama Dharma. Yogishwaram Yajnavalkyam Sambujya Munayo Abruvan Varnasramederesham no Bruhi Dharmana Sheshataha iti. In Tantravartika, a famous Sanskrit text, Tantravartika, also Varnasrama is meant as Dharma. Sarva Dharma Sutranam Varnasrama Dharmobadeshitvad iti. Medhatidi interprets the Manusmriti and explains that there are 5 parts of Dharma, namely Varna Dharma, Asrama Dharma, Varnasrama Dharma, Naimittika Dharma and Guna Dharma. Manu states that Veda, Smriti, Sadachara and Atmatushti are the 4 constituent elements of Dharma. Veda, Smriti, Sadachara, Sosyaja Priyamatmanaha, Edas Chadurvidam Prahuhu, Sakshat Dharmasya Lakshanam iti. Manusmriti defines Sadachara as the traditional practice of Varnasrama Dharma that has been all along practiced in Aryavarta, Akha Brahmavarta. Manu mandates the Swadharma is Varna Dharma, Varam Swadharmo Vigunaha, Naparakyaha, Sanishtidaha, Paradharmena Jivanhi, Sadhyapadida Jaditaha iti. The Bhagavata Puranam makes it clear that Dharma is Varnasrama Dharma. Varnasrama Vadam Dharme Nashte Veda Pade Nranam. It says that those born from the higher organs of Virat Purusha are exalted and those born from inferior body parts of Virat Purusha are lowly. Varnanam Asramanam ja Janma Bhumyanusarini Asan Pragradayo Nranam Nijair Nijottamottamaihi. What is Varnasrama Dharma? Says Manusmriti, Varnasrama Dharma is the hereditary order of the 4 Varnas and those who are products of permitted inter-Varna relationship, that is, Andaralas, the product of Anuloma relationships. Tasmin deshe ye acharaha paramparyakramagadha varnanam sandaralanam sa sadajara uchyade. Varnasrama Dharma imposes specific roles and duties on each Varna. According to the Manusmriti, the Brahman's Swadharma is study, teaching and yajnam and yajana. In contrast, the duty of the Shudra is service of Dijas, Dijadi Susrusha. A Shudra does not have the right to accumulate wealth or to engage in learning or any other activity. Chandalas, including outcasts, the vast majority of our people who are considered by authors of Dharma Shastras as graveyards. Vyavaharamala is a Kerala Smriti text, treats the performance of occupation assigned to one's Varna as Dharma. It says that everyone must engage only in occupation of their Varna. Performing the occupation of other Varnas will only invite disaster. Sarvesham eva Varnanam evam dairmyo danagamaha vivaryada dharmasyanya chedabat gariyase. As Varna is acquired by birth, Vyavaharamala holds that acquisition of a Varna different from that into which one is born by performing the occupation of different Varna is a punishable offense. It commands kings to punish Shudras who wear sacred threads like Brahmins. Tan sarvan khadayed raja Shudramscha dijalinginaha. Shankaracharya's Advaita philosophy, much admired as enlightened, accepts Chadurvarnya while interpreting the revelation in Bhagavad Gita. The God created Chadurvarnya. Chadurvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagasha. Shankaracharya says in his Gita Bhashyam that the Purusha Sutta in the Rigveda is correct, that humans are created by God in 4 Varnas, born from various organs of Virat Purusha in order of merit, Brahmins from the face, etc., leaving out the rest as subhuman. Chatvareva Varnaha Chadurvarnyam maya Ishwarena srishtam utpadidam brahmanosya mugamasid ityadi srutehe. In Shankaracharya's Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya, Shankara accepts the Varnasrama division and interprets the word Brahma as the meaning, the source of protection of pride of Brahmin caste. Brahmana Jatyabhimanad Brahmetyabhidiyate iti. Arthashastra, Kaudilya's Arthashastra wants that if this dharma is violated, Varna dharma is violated, the result will be a world with abhorrent hybrid and impure races. Tasyadikrame lokaha sangaraduchidyete. Manu holds that Varna hybridization occurs through prohibited intermarriage and interrelationship between Varnas, where the Varna order is abandoned. Vyabhicharena Varnanam avedya vedanena cha swakarmanam jatyagena jayande Varna sangaraha. Manu also holds that wherever there is intermingling of Varnas, the purity of Varna is destroyed, and the country will perish along with the inhabitants of the country. Yatra tvede paridvamsa jayande varna dushagaha rashtrigaihi saha tadrashtram kshiprameva vinashyadi. The country will perish along with the inhabitants of the inhabitants. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna also worries that the case will perish due to marriages that violate the caste order. The Bhagavata Puranam says that Lord Vasudeva, Bhagavan Krishna, will incarnate to protect Varnasrama Dharma when it starts to be destroyed. Ta vihitte kalerande Vasudeva anushitchidau Varnasrama yudham dharmam purvavat pradayishyate iti. It is therefore beyond question that what the Dharma and Purana texts define and the interpret as Dharma and what is meant by Sanatana Dharma is Varnasrama Dharma, the duty to eternally maintain the Varnasrama social order and world view. This Varnasrama Dharma, also called Sanatana Dharma, is closely related to the concept of Prayaschitta and the concept of Papa, Punya and Karma. What is Prayaschitta? The predominant meaning of the term Prayaschitta is expiation or atonement for the removal of errors in the performance of sacrifices or ritualistic practices. Vidyaparade Prayaschittam. Taittiriya Samhita frequently used the word Prayaschitti in the sense of expiatory rites. In Ashwalayana Srauda Sutra, also the word Prayashchittihi occurs in the same sense. Patanjali uses both words Prayaschitta and Prayashchitti. Shabara in his Bhashya describes Prayashchittas are of two kinds. Some of them are meant to correct the defects which arises or befall through some neglect in the procedure and material used in the rituals. Others are subsidiary parts of a rite when an occasion arises, that is, when they are undertaken to atone for not doing what is ordained or for doing something which is forbidden. Sayana's commentary on Samavidhana Brahmana comments that the word praya is divided into two parts, pra and ayaha. Referring to this P.V. Kane says that the religious observances after knowing a certain happening are called prayaschittas. The Brahmana texts have not given the etymology and meaning of the word prayaschitta or prayaschitti. However, in the period of Brahmana texts, expiatory rites were very complex in nature and they gradually increased due to development of the sacrificial culture. Though the concept of prayaschitta or prayaschitti originated in the period of Samhitas, it evolved and developed during the period of Sutras and Smritis. The Rigvedic seers did not perform expiation in the real sense of prayaschitta. The seers of Rigveda praised Varuna, Agni and Indra only for their domestic and social sins. They offered Havis and Soma to various deities for their own sins. The concept of ritual mistakes and related sins pervade after the period of Rigveda. The concept of ritual mistakes was developed during the period of Brahmanas. So implicitly it can be seen that the concept of expiation is related to the concept of papa and punya. The concept of papa is the basis of all actions of expiation. The idea of papa, sin, can be seen from the earlier period. The religious text insists that human beings have to do right deeds in their life besides the visible effects, drishta. Some imperceptible effects, adrishta, of these actions are also attributed in all religious texts. The positive and negative imperceptible outcomes of action are termed as punya and papa respectively. Rida is the term used in Rigveda to denote the concept of punya or dharma. In a later period, expiatory rites are prescribed for any kind of sins, while these concepts of papa and punya are closely related to karma and punarjanma concepts. The people are frightened in the name of atrocious hell and the various diseases. The authors of Brahmanas, Sutras, and Smritis implicitly state that what do not experience the proper expiation go down into excruciating and atrocious hell. For the emancipation from dreadful hell and diseases, people should be inspired to perform expiatory acts. It denotes the strong belief of karma and punarjanma in the social and domestic life of Indian people. The karma concept is strongly associated to the caste system of the society. The religious rites advised to each person are according to his varna and caste. Yajnavalkya states that the murder of a Brahmin gets birth in the body of beast, a dog, a pig, or a camel. The drinker of Surya would be born as a Paulska or Vena. It is very difficult to determine the first root of the karma theory. The first waves of the thought might be heard in Chandogya Upanishad. Tadyaiha ramaniya charanabhyashohayatte Ramaniyam yonim abadyeran brahmana yonim va kshatriya yonim va vaishya yonim vadha Yaiha kuba kabuya charanabhyashohayatte kabuyam yonim abadyeran ashwa yonim va Sugara yonim va chandala yonim va. The Punarjanma theory propounds guarantee for happiness at least in the next birth after death. This provided with boundless mental power for enduring anything to those who suffered due to the miseries of this world. By this way, they could have forgotten the adversities of the world and must have largely overcome the dilemmas of the time. It seems that the karma theory very deeply influenced the concept of prayaschitta and it instigates the performance of expiatory rite related to all religious ceremonies. The Punarjanma concept is directly related to the karma concept. It is believed that the sinners who do not perform expiation for removing their papa acquiring birth in lower bodies, that is in the form of lower class people or in the form of animals. The Dharma literature attests these views. Manu says that if sins are not expiated, human beings are to be born with deformities. Moreover, he asserts that the unexpiated sinners will lead to hell and then attain various rebirths. Vishnu Dharma Sutra has pointed out the sinners who have not performed an expiation will have to go to hells and then take birth in animal bodies and then as a lower human beings, that is Chandalas and outcasts. Shadadava Samhita declares that those who have not performed expiation for removing their sins would go to the hell and then born with the signs of sins. Thus it can be said, according to the Dharma Shastra test, that one who attains from expiatory rituals will get punishment in the form of inferior birth or diseases. The Prayaschitta and Punarjanma phase or Dharma concept of a society become influential in the arenas of production and thereby in concentrating of the wealth towards the ruling class and the priestly class. The Punarjanma stories present the picture of the extending authority of the society which had enough agricultural resources to tap the human potential in any sector. It was believed in very ancient times that diseases are the penalty of sins. The early writers on Dharma like Manu and Vasishtha state that diseases and bodily defects that sinners suffer are the effects of their sins. In Ayurvedic tradition, some incurable and hereditary diseases are due to the sufferer's previous karma. Charaka Samhita defined the belief that diseases are the consequence of action done in previous births. Vasishtha Dharma Sutra says, a thief becomes a man with misshapen nails, a murderer of Brahman becomes a man with white leprosy, one who drinks liquor becomes a man with black teeth, and one who has sex with the wife of his guru, Brahman guru, becomes a man with skin diseases. Prayasthita Sudha Nidhi, a work attributed to Sayana, discusses 51 diseases and their remedies. The diseases are Rajakshma, Karshya, Kushta, Visarpa, Dedru, etc. This test recommends various expiatory rites for the removal of these diseases. There are various types of puja, homa, dana, and yajnas. For instance, the prayaschitta for Bahumutra Prameha, blood sugar, is to gift a golden cow icon to a priest and then to do fire offerings, homa. The remedy of Rajashma is vows for 12 years and the donation of all properties of the ailing person, Sarvatyaga, to a Brahmin and going for a long journey, Tirthadana. The expiatory rites for Karshya disease is the gift of a golden icon to a Brahmin and then perform Rudra Puja and Homa of Shiva. The concept of diseases are related to the karma and Punarjanma theory. This is Sanatana Dharma. By inducing and frightening the people, the priestly class always made use of this assumption to maintaining their power in society. Being the remedial action due to the breakage of law, punishment and expiatory rites contain some resemblances. Punishments are recommended to resolve social offenses and expiatory rites are prescribed to religious offenses. Abhastamba Dharma Sutra says that if someone kills a Kshatriya, he should give 1,000 cows to erase the hostility, 100 if kills a Vaishya, and 10 if kills a Shudra. In addition, a bull is to be given in each case of expiation. The same applies for killing women of these classes. A man who has had sex with the wife of his Brahman guru should cut off his penis together with his testicles and holding them in his cupped hands, walks toward the south without turning back, or else he should end his life by embracing a red-hot metal column. A man who has drink liquor should drink boiling hot liquor. Dharma Shastras have deeply rooted in Indian culture and society, and its impact can be seen in contemporary society and beliefs. Most of Sanskrit literature does directly follow the laws and customs of Dharma Shastras. The migrant Brahmins of Kerala very much follow the Vedic and Smarta traditions. They have tried and succeeded in remolding the religious and ritualistic life of Kerala in turn with their customs. It is observed that the reason for the peculiarities of Kerala temple rituals may be that the Vedic Brahmins migrated and settled in Kerala, followed Shankara Smriti for setting up their life pattern in Kerala. The untouchability, inapproachability, and other peculiar customs instructed by Shankara Smriti as Sanatana Dharma should have been the causes for the aloofness or distinction of Kerala temple customs for those of the other places of India. Scholars have clearly attested that the Kerala Brahmins followed Shankara Smriti, Abhastamba Dharma Sutra and Baudhayana Dharma Sutra. Vadakankur Rajarajavarma, a Kerala Sanskrit scholar, pointed out that the Kerala Nambudris pursue various laws and customs of Egashwasa, Prayaschitta Vimarshini, Prayaschitta Sangraha and Ashauja Deepika, which are the prominent Dharma-related treatises of Kerala. Touch of outcasts and Chandala is the major cause of impurity in Dharma legal literatures. Manu considered that the samsarga or samyoga association of a padida leads to impurity. He also says that the touch of a Bauddha, Pashuvada, and atheist, Lokayadika or Nastika, is a sinful act causing impurity. Most of the Dharmashastrakaryas firmly restricted the physical contact of a Chandala as they considered him as a Sarva Dharma Behishkrida, and he is equally to be ranked with a dog. Like this, Gautama and Yajnavalkya also restrict entering of a Chandala in ritual ceremonies and social worships. It is pointed out that the Chandala is the lowest among the human beings. Moreover, the legal authorities like Manu, Vishnu, and Atri believe that the presence of semen, blood, narrow urine, muscus of the nose, earwax, phlegm, tears, etc. causes for impurity. Accordingly, death and birth also cause impurity. Another impurity is related to menstruation of women. The majority of Dharma authorities appraise us that menstruation of women is severe contamination. They have also ordered that birth and death is an impurity. Dakshasmriti proclaims that purity is the base of a Brahman and Dharma. If a Brahman is devoid of their purity, all his acts will be useless. Then the Brahmins attributed the concept and practice of purity as a Dharma to every action. Strikingly, the South Indian Brahmins follow the rules of Abhastamba and Baudhayana besides the other Smriti treatises. The authorities of Dharma literatures laid down larger strain on impurity, so the followers of Smarta and Vedic tradition of Kerala South India have screwed the concept of impurity into the tantric manuals of Kerala and South India. The expiatory rituals in their earlier Shaivagamas evidently prove that they do not accept the views of Dharmashastras to a large extent. Even though the influence of these agamas were clearly seen in Kerala Tantric text, they often follow Vedic and Smarta ritual action and rules. The Dharmashastra authorities considered that the feet of a Brahmin and urine of cow are major purifiers. Manu, Yajnavalkya, and Vishnu proclaim that sprinkling with water is a method of purification, punyaham. Yajnavalkya also provides the fire, earth, and water are purifiers. The above ideas of the purificatory actions are also seen in tantric manuals of Kerala for the removal of impurity affected in temples. Prayoga Manjari, Vishnu Samhita, Tantra Samuchaya, and Kujikatavacha. They are tantric ritual manuals of Kerala, follow digging, burning, and sprinkling for impurity, for cleansing the impurity. The expiatory charts of Kujikatavacha indicates Godohana as a custom related to cow, which is stayed at the polluted area. In this manner, the Dharma legal authorities and the Tantric authorities of Kerala give a prominent role to the concept of purification of things. Concept of impurity is related to landlordism and Brahmanical hierarchy. It is also proliferate the system of castes and subcastes. Kerala caste system is different from that existing in other places of India. In North India, caste system is based on the Chadurvarnya system. Nevertheless, in Kerala, caste system originated on the basis of hierarchy and landlordism. With regard to the temple culture and agriculture-related occupation, various castes were emerged in Kerala. This type of caste system in Kerala leads to special type of untouchability and inapproachability. The expiate rites in Kerala Tantra are closely related to this caste system. As a Dharma system, untouchability and inapproachability is closely related to Dharma. Prayoga Manjari, a Kerala Tantric ritual manual, restricts the entering of outcasts, Chandala, and lunatic person into the temple. For the entry of Padidas, Prayoga Manjari, a Kerala Tantric ritual manual, prescribes various expiatory rites. This strong restriction indicates the prevalence of untouchability and inapproachability in the Kerala society and the time of composition of Prayoga Manjari. Vishnu Samhita, 12th century ritual manual, also recommended various expiatory rituals for the entry of outcasts, Vratyas and Devalas. Ishana Shiva Gurudeva Pattadi, 10th century Tantric manual in South India, strictly prohibited eating the food of Arhadas, Shakyas, Pashupadas, and Kabaligas, and it is also considered the touching of the leftovers, Uchishta of Andhyaja and Shudra is a sinful act. Ishana Shiva Gurudeva Pathadi generally follows the Shaivagama rites, but the test has strictly prohibited the physical contact of Arhadas, Shakyas and other Shaiva sects like Pashupadas and Kabaligas. It clearly shows the discontentment and intolerance towards the other tantric sects. Moreover, these intolerance have pointed out the effective influence of Brahmanism and Vedic culture on Tantra. After the Tantra Samuchaya phase, after 14th century, caste system and impurity increased in momentum. Tantra Samuchaya does not give the details of Padidas. Shankara on his Vimarshini indicates that Padida means fallen peoples like Chandala, etc. The Paba concept are strongly affected in the Kerala Tantric expiation. The author of Vivarana strongly considered that Padidas are the major sinners in the society. As a result, the Padidas are marginalized and they experience untouchability and inapproachability, directly or indirectly. It is already observed that the Paba and Punya concept are the seeds of karma theory. In Kerala, the karma punarjanma has led to the concept of ashauja or impurity. It is the visible result of the practice of untouchability as a dharma. Kujikattu Vacha of Maheshwaran Bhattathirippadu is the most important evidence for the caste-based expiation as a dharma. Kujikattu Vacha considered that entering of Bauddhas, Europeans and other castes like Paraya, Pulaya, Mannan, Kadar, Velan, Panan, Kaniyan, Valan, Chegon, Arayan, Kollan, Mushari, Ashari, Velutad and Tattan into the temple or temple courtyard also lead to the impurity of temple and sanctum sanctorum. In contrast to pre-Tantra Samuchaya period, the number of untouchable increased after the period of Tantra Samuchaya. It indicates the priestly class performed mainly for the expiation as a dharma in the basis of caste system and impurity. I am concluding. In a January 1915 lecture delivered in Shivagiri, Kerala, the renowned Kerala social reformer and thinker Sahodaran Ayyappan, disciple of the Narayana Guru, especially warned that the caste system is being promoted under the guise of dharma. Ayyappan wrote in his poem Parivartanam that what goes under names such as Sanatana Dharma and Varnasrama Dharma is the religion built by the Brahmins, which lowers the other, those who are not Savarnas, as inferior. In an address presented to Mahatma Gandhi during Gandhi's visit to Kerala in 1934, Sahodaran said that it is this cruel dharma called Varnasrama Dharma that makes people in India destitute. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar wrote, Vedas and Shastras which reject rationality and reject morality should be destroyed with dynamite, because the Vedas and Dharma Shastras and Tantric manuals are foundational precepts of maintaining the caste-violent hierarchical social system of Varnasrama Dharma. Narayana Guru, Sahodaran Ayyappan, Periyar and Ambedkar courageously rejected the attempt to strengthen the caste system by discussing it as glorious Sanatana tradition, having embraced Buddhism along with its lakhs of followers. Dr. Ambedkar totally rejected Sanatana Dharma and embraced Buddhism along with the lakhs of his followers, unfazed by violent acts by Brahmanistic ideology. Dr. Ambedkar must be our guiding light in understanding that Sanatana Dharma is today nothing more than a rebranding of the inhuman and anti-social caste system. Thank you.
It was a very important presentation in terms of, most of us are not familiar with the Sanskrit sources and we don't have any access to it. We have, secondary, and here is a scholar who cites extensively from various documents, and to show that how caste inequalities and other things are built into the Sanatana Dharma, and of course ends by talking about Ambedkar and others, why it needs to be dismantled and rejected and destroyed. Thank you, Shyamkumar, for a very erudite Sanskrit presentation. In fact, that whole thing on purity and karma, how it is used to, as tools to oppress, I think it was very enlightening. The next presentation is by Patricia Mukim. Your ACJ students are familiar. She gave a very brilliant presentation yesterday about the situation in Northeast. And today she will be speaking about ethnicity, identity, and the quest for ST status. Let me introduce the speaker. Patricia Mukim is currently the editor of Shillong Times, one of Northeast India's oldest English language daily. She's a former member of the National Security Advisory Board and was also on the board of the Indian Institute of Mass Communication. She's a prolific writer and uses her columns to educate those outside India's Northeast about its geopolitical pressures and geopolitical pressures and pulls and its ethnic diversities. She has received several journalistic awards, amongst which are the prestigious Chameli Devi Jain Award from the Media Foundation. Patricia says she's a journalist activist and sees no conflict of interest there. I think this is something most of us, in the classroom discussions, we always have students saying, there's conflict between, I'm an activist, journalist activist. Earlier also, Sunaina was like mentioning about, can you be an academic and an activist, or, how keeping it apart, what it has. Patricia was conferred the Padma Shri in 2000. Over to Patricia.
Thank you very much once again. After listening to the previous speaker, I feel that revival of the Sanatan Dharma is going to be a huge burden on humanity, not just on the Hindus, but on all of us, perhaps. So the question before us on almost a daily basis is, what is identity exactly? After years of trying to understand it, one has come to the conclusion, along with other scholars, that it is a socially and historically constructed concept, and they are linked to power, to value systems, and even to ideology. Before venturing to understand some other people's identities, I think it's important to understand our own identity first. Who am I? Because each person has several identities, so what aspect of that identity is being, projected? Especially when, as media persons, we report an event, what is it that we are projecting? When we go to a conflict zone, what identities do we see there, playing out each other? Which is the identity that we need to focus on, that is not going to exacerbate the conflict, that's not going to lead to further conflicts? Do we erase out the identities and just report as, as the person speaking being a human, first of all? Or do we attribute identities to that person and then allow that person to voice out her or his views and giving that person a particular identity, a particular construct. I'm looking at myself. Okay, I have all these identities. I'm a Khasi, scheduled tribe, heterosexual woman. Perhaps in my time we didn't understand the whole rainbow of gender identities. I'm Christian because I was baptized at the age of 1 year and I didn't have any choice. Then, so I didn't really get to choose my faith. I'm a divorcee, I'm a mother, I'm a media person, opinion writer, and I also see myself at times as a women's rights activist. So I have all these identities. But what happens when I am questioned or I'm interviewed by sections of the media? They see me only as a media person. So even if I speak a lot of things, the construct given is that I'm speaking as a media person, quite forgetting that when I visit a conflict zone and I interact with mothers of children, I might be reacting as a mother, as another mother, or something to that effect. So every time I'm introduced as, that is the primary identity, you know? I've been reduced to that primary identity. All the other identities are subsumed. I don't know whether that is good or bad. I leave it to your judgment. Because the other aspects of my identity might influence what I say, or maybe I don't say. What is it that I'm not saying, which I should be saying, because I'm identified as a media person and I'm expected to be very, very objective, pragmatic and all that. And the media often does not interrogate my political stances. They take it for granted that I have no political ideology. I don't think that's correct. What are my cultural leanings? Am I only leaning towards my own culture? Do I have empathy for other cultures? How open am I to understanding and adapting and internalizing other cultures? And I think that might be a major problem in reporting ethnic strife. In the first instance, I should say that conflict reporting is a very, very difficult and challenging task, and we are not trained for that. I hope that ACJ has a course on conflict reportage, because all of us who've landed in Manipur, or who are reporting from there, we are going there with, with no tools at all. We have not been trained to report conflict, especially ethnic conflicts. Maybe we are trained to report wars and what's happening now in Israel, but we are not really trained to report conflict as it happens, as it plays out in different parts of this country. So, how do we identify ourselves? Each one of us in this room has an identity, and it will be good to do a little exercise on trying to understand your own identity. And what is the most important aspect of that identity? Is it your sex, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, class status, nationality, religious affiliation, age, your physical or cognitive abilities, because cognition especially is very, very important. It decides what we think, or your political beliefs. We are in a country today where, there's a huge push for one particular kind of religious belief. And those of us who come from that distant place called India's Northeast, we find it so hard to understand how we can adapt to this situation of a very, very strong push for a majoritarian culture. Is there one part of your identity which stands out from the rest? or does your identity change depending on who you're talking to, who you're with at this point of time, what kind of activity you're involved in, what's your course of study at the moment? Is that deciding your identity? And then where you are in your life at this point. It's not going to be the same as it is today. 10 years hence, there will be some identity changes in you, in the way you look at the world, in your worldviews. So that we have said earlier. And we learn about, how do we learn about our identities? We learn from our family members. They're constantly telling us who we are, how we should behave, how we should speak to our elders. And in my society especially, there's a huge thrust on culture, tradition. This is how you speak to elders. This is how parents should speak to their children, and this is how children should speak to their parents, and there is no talking back at all. That's why we have become a very unquestioning kind of society. It's a society that doesn't allow free play of thoughts and ideas. It's a very constricted society, and those who break out are considered, sort of free spirits who are not loyal to tradition, who are not loyal to that society. We also have all kinds of traditional institutions. They constantly reinforce our culture on us, as if we have to live with the past always. But that's not the case. We have to live in the present. We have to confront present challenges. And we cannot always do what was good in the past. All of these facets of identity, they play significant roles in how we understand and experience the world around us. And also how we, find and accept and get into the opportunities that are before us, or whether we are even able to access those opportunities and we build challenges around ourselves. And social and cultural identity is very, very intrinsically linked to issues of power, value systems, and ideology. I come from a society where, you have this, we are tribes. We are tribes. And India is 8.6, India has a population of 8.6% of tribes across the country. We don't have a caste system, thank God for that. But over the years, we have now a tribal elite, a tribal elite that has more access to resources because they are close to the political system, to the powers that be. And that is the challenge before us today. We may not have the caste system, but we have a class system. And that's a small elite. And that's why the contestation today is whether that, the creamy layer should continue to enjoy the ST status, or whether we should go to an, what they have now, the EWS. Yeah, the least empowered should be in that category of reservation in jobs, reservation in education, and above all, if you're a scheduled tribe, you do not pay income tax in your own state. It's only when you move out of your state to other states to work there that you have to pay income tax. And that is the reason why, if you look at all the tribal IAS officers, they never want to move out of Meghalaya or Nagaland or Mizoram. Because once they move out, they have to pay income tax. But because they don't move out, they have so little idea of what happens in Delhi, for instance. If you look at the non-tribal officers, they are always going out of the state. Even though they're given a state cadre, they prefer to be in Delhi because the exposure is so large, but not with our tribal officers, unfortunately. So, as media persons, what do we use? What do we resort to? We use images. We use words, we use characters, we use personae, means different personalities, to convey specific ideas related to culture and identity in society. It's not a very easy thing to do to understand cultures, especially in a region with, like I said yesterday, 238 ethnic communities, each with their own eating habits, food habits, their own dances, their own dresses, their own languages, dialects, and so on. Part of understanding our identity also means to understand how we fit into that mold, or maybe we don't fit with other groups of people whom we don't understand. It also means being aware that some groups have more social, political, and economic power than others. In Meghalaya, I'm speaking here largely of Meghalaya and Manipur. In Meghalaya, we have 3 important tribes: Khasi, Jaintia, Garo. The Khasis and Jaintias, as I said yesterday, are of a similar origin. The Garos are Tibeto-Burmans. We are all 3 tribes belonging to one state, but the large part of the resources of the state have gone to the Khasis and Jaintias. So there's inequity even amongst the tribes. The Meiteis, more educationally advanced, Hindus, and practice the caste system very, very strictly. And they were fortunate to have come from a culture that gave a priority to learning. And most of their institutions are there, so they have easy access to those institutions. And that's why when we do stories, we have to recognize these factors that advantage one group from another. So what do people from the outside think or understand India's Northeast? What do they focus on? They usually focus on largely the cultural markers, dresses, languages, cultures, which is not understood by many. There are many people who come to Meghalaya and say, you'll find little videos, of a tourist who visits the place once and then makes a video and circulates it around and says, this is a place where a man, when he marries, has to move to the home of the woman. That's not the case. It's only when a man marries the youngest daughter that he has to move to her home, because the youngest daughter has to look after the parents until they pass away. So that man has a special responsibility, along with his wife, to his in-laws. But not all men who marry the other daughters in the hierarchy have to move to the mother-in-law's place. They start a family of their own. So these are the things that attract people when they come to a place: the sights and sounds, the waterfalls. And by the end of it, they have very little time to actually understand our culture, our way of life. But for us, these ecosystems also define how we see the rest of the world and how we develop our worldviews. So, as I said earlier, we may have come from wherever, we may have migrated from wherever to that region, but we consider ourselves as the first settlers, and therefore we believe we are indigenous to that place. We are indigenous people. India, of course, does not accept the term indigenous people because they say that everyone is indigenous to some place or the other. But what is the definition of indigenous? That is the definition. An early culture which is associated with the first inhabitants of a given region, although not all indigenous people share this characteristics, because many of them have been colonized. If you look at the Native Americans, they don't feature anywhere in the scheme of things today. They've been colonized, they've been pushed to the margins. And this is what the tribes of the Northeast are always so afraid of. And their big red flag is Tripura. Tripura was a tribal state when it started. and then it was taken over by people coming from Bangladesh and all over the place, and now the tribes there are reduced to just 32% of the population. Also, it's the same with Assam. The Bodos were the first settlers there. Today, the Bodos are nowhere in the scheme of things. And of course, it's also true that the tribes, after they have accepted Christianity, have given up a large part of their culture. Today, those tribals who still hold on to the indigenous faith, they believe that they are the true custodians of culture, and the Christians can no longer call themselves traditional indigenous tribals. But that's still a quarrel that's ongoing. So indigenous societies are found in every part of the world except Antarctica. And indigenous people have their own strengths. They, of course, have their weaknesses too. And they have been colonized by people who are racially superior, that we know, religiously superior, and who these people come in the garb of bringing education, bringing all kinds of things, but actually they are eyeing the resources. If you look at the map and you find a map that shows you where the resources are located, in every part of the world, mineral resources are located in the lands inhabited by indigenous peoples. So there are huge numbers of indigenous people who today live in areas where they are no longer a majority. And we continue to face threats to sovereignty, economic well-being, even languages are not recognized, even access to resources within indigenous people's lands are not available to all. I come from a state where I speak the Khasi language. Since 1972, when Meghalaya was given its statehood, we have been demanding recognition of the Khasi language, but that demand is still languishing in New Delhi somewhere, and I don't know when we are going to have a recognized language where we can write exams in our own language, because that opportunity is given to all those whose languages are recognized. It's true that we need English at the higher levels, but there are people today who do not understand mathematics because it's all in English. And when the same set of students are explained a mathematical problem in the Khasi language or in their local languages, they understand it much better, which is why I think the national education policy, which says that we should be learning our first educational stages in the local languages, is a good idea, because you need to have a core understanding of mathematics. In our state, we have very few people opting for maths and science. Only 12% of those who pass their high school leaving certificate opt for maths and science. Then we have pressure on land. There is a saying amongst the hill tribes that one Ambani or an Adani can buy the whole state, has the resources to buy the whole state. So we need to have a land transfer act in place if we are to continue to retain our identity and our living space. Then, on being tribal and the quest for a tribal status, ST status, what does being tribal mean? It means that you are actually in poverty, you are exploited, there's economic backwardness, there's backwardness of technology, understanding technology, other socio-cultural handicaps of not being mainstream enough to be able to enter the mainstream workplace or the mainstream educational space. And the problem of assimilating with the larger non-tribal population. There is still a whole lot of issues there. there is this scholar S.C. Dubey who has given a five-fold classification of the Indian tribes. He says that aboriginals also means indigenous people. Indigenous people continue to live in seclusion, especially in this state. There are those tribes that are still classed as primitive tribal groups, right? I don't know, you must have visited some of those areas. I don't know and I don't understand why even today there should be so much of backwardness. Then, the problem with the tribal societies are that they need to have constant interface with the non-tribal world, but they're constantly feeling that they're being exploited. I really don't understand this fear. I think it comes from insecurity. So every time they're up in arms, I come from a state where we had this ethnic cleansing in 1979. All the Bengalis were driven off. That was followed by 1982, where all the Nepalese were driven off. Then there was a long, phase where nothing happened. Then we had militancy. So we are always in a state of flux. Tribals living in villages along with caste groups, sex and religious groups, and still maintaining their identity. Those are tribals. And then tribals also in the larger Indian society are classed as untouchables. Then there are tribals, as I said earlier, who enjoy a very high economic and social and political status, especially those who are in politics, have now become akin to non-tribals in all that they possess and in their power equations with others. Then you have this commission which recommended that an area be declared tribal where more than 50% of the people are tribals. Then these are the criteria, for defining a group as tribal: dependence on forests for food, still doing primitive agriculture, then dependence on forests for medicinal products, for food products, and also getting into the modern occupation systems and being employed in industries that come up within their spaces. So considering that this is a complex thing, it is very, very difficult to understand how to solve the problems of tribals. It needs some really intensive and extensive study to understand how to begin to tackle these problems without upsetting the whole, the whole equation of being tribal. Yeah. So before the British came, I think there was much more tribal solidarity, and the tribals actually engaged in the barter system of economy. We didn't know what money was until very late, and that was the basic mode of our economic relations. Then the British came, they took over forests, and they were the first to introduce privatization of land. So now in most tribal states, we have the concept of individual land, clan lands, community lands, and so on. Earlier, there was no concept of private land or individual land. We had community land, which was given to every household. If a person gets married today, the community would see that they're given a plot of land on which to build a house to live in. Then we had money lenders coming in, until very late in the day, we had these Kabulis coming in. I'm reminded of that film, Kabuliwala. We had these Kabulis from Afghanistan, and they lived very well in all parts of Meghalaya. They were giving out money at very high rate of interest of 10 rupees per 100 per month. And then what they took in return was your land documents. So many of the Khasis actually lost their land, although, see, it was at a time when we had not come up with the Land Transfer Act. So land could be bought and sold by anyone to anyone. Then when we started seeing that land was being alienated so fast towards non-tribals, that was when the Land Transfer Act came in 1976. So why is it that we are demanding for ST status across this country? And Rajasthan, for instance, has the largest number of scheduled tribes at 12% of the population. Just imagine how the equations will change if those 12% are given scheduled tribe rights. It's going to upset a lot of apple carts, and there will be a lot of, what should I say, resistance, I think, from the forward groups. But nevertheless, they continue to ask for ST status because they think that they are not as yet well represented in governance, in politics, and in industries. They are not very well represented at the higher echelons of academia. If you look at any university, how many universities have tribal vice chancellors? So this article is worth reading by Christina Iona. She's written extensively on tribals of India. The reservation for STs, it boils down to rights in the field of education. The reason why we have quite a few tribal doctors today is because of reservation. Without reservation, I don't think too many would have been able to get in. So why is it that in Manipur, the Meiteis are demanding scheduled tribe status? Why have they been demanding scheduled tribe status for over a decade? One of the reasons that they say is their fear of being outnumbered by people coming in from Myanmar. And that has become, that has aggravated actually after the junta takeover in 2021. There's rising unemployment, but I think this is across the board. Every state has a high unemployment figure. A mental divide between the hill tribes and the Meiteis who have ST status. There is a huge mental divide. That mental divide today is even more aggravated. There is no way you can think of a hill person coming down to the valley or vice versa. And the Meiteis want to be recognized as indigenous inhabitants of India. And this is what has, given rise to that ST demand. But the demand has been inconsistent at best. It has been there for several years, right from 2012. But, there is still a sizable number of Meiteis who do not believe in that demand for ST status. They feel that they are a chosen race. They are a race that were ruled by kings, and they need not come down to the status of the hill tribes, who they think are largely uncivilized. So I think you should read Sanjay Akoijam's articles. He has written extensively on why the Meiteis, large numbers of Meiteis still do not want the Meiteis, the ST status. But as of today, what has happened is that though the best intellectuals amongst the Meiteis have been coerced to take the majoritarian stance, they cannot speak or say anything that's anti the larger Meitei narrative. That is a sad thing, because one always expects intellectuals to stand apart, but not in this case. And the demand for ST status has been subsumed by other demands. The need for an inner line permit, the need for more districts and all that. It's only in March this year that the demand for ST status has been upped. And we all know the genesis of that. The Manipur High Court had ruled that the state government should pursue this demand for ST status more diligently by writing to the concerned departments. And I'm only taking a small bit of the gender question here, the gender problem. You've heard of the Meira Paibis. They are the so-called torchbearers of Meitei society, women torchbearers. In recent times, not in recent times really, since 2015, they have used their bodies mainly as a weapon against the Indian state, against security forces. And one is not really sure if that is a good idea, if that actually represents women's empowerment when you are, repressing a section of state forces from performing their duties. So maybe that can be taken up by those who are looking at gender extensively in this debate. Thank you very much.
Thanks to our speakers and our moderator, Mohan Rammoorthy sir. And now we'll be open for questions from the audience.
Mike, we'll start from the back. Yeah.
My question is to Patricia, ma'am. Ma'am, in your speech, you have said that people from Bangladesh migrated to, and now they are majority in the state of Tripura. My question is, Bangladesh only became a country in 1971 after being colonized by two imperialistic powers. Even there were no borders between present-day Bangladesh and the state of Tripura before 1947. Political leaders of Northeast always blames Bangladesh and Bangladeshis for many reasons. Don't you think that activists should consider their terms before generalizing a sovereign country?
Thank you. Thank you for that, for correcting me. It's not Bangladesh. It started with East Pakistan. It started with East Bengal, actually. Right from the time people were coming up gradually because of the persecution in that state. You know that it's a Muslim majority nation, East Bengal, then East Pakistan. And in my own state, we have a place called Relief and Rehabilitation Colony, where in 1971, large numbers of Hindus had crossed over, and they were given a place of residence. So, and then you know from what you're saying, you would know how the Tripura kings actually invited people from across the border to help with governance and all that. So they came, they lived, they multiplied, and there was no concept at that time of tribal, indigenous, and all that. So what has happened is the tribals were marginalized, they kept moving to the periphery, and today you see that the present king, I don't know whether you want to call him king, everyone calls him Maharaja, Pradyot Dev Burma, he is standing on the side of his indigenous people. He's formed the Tipra Motha, where he wants greater autonomy for the tribals. So what I'm trying to say is that there is always a fear of the tribals being turned to minorities in their own homeland. And I'm sorry for saying Bangladesh. But it's true that, this Bangladesh, what you call boogeyman, is always there. In Assam, it continues to be there even today. Everyone who has a Muslim title is considered Bangladeshi. Even in Meghalaya, it's the same. So we continue to live with these constructed fears. It serves the political class, it doesn't serve the ordinary citizens.
Next one. Yeah, Neetika and then Kritika. We'll just take 3-4 questions in that order. Please.
My question is to Dr. Shyam Kumar. Good afternoon, sir. So at the preface, it looks like Sanatan Dharma was practiced to uphold the interest of Brahmins in the name of establishing a rule-based order. Why do you think a system unlikely a dharma so regressive, is still so popular? Good afternoon, sir.
No, the last part, why is it still relevant or popular?
Yeah.
That is the question.
Why do you think a system unlikely a dharma, so regressive, is still so popular?
A system like?
Sanatan Dharma.
So why is Sanatana Dharma still so popular? Why is it considered in force? You know, if since you have characterized it, it obviously is a regressive system. It should have no place in society today. How is it outliving its role or its time?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇപ്പോഴും തുടരുന്നത്?
എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇപ്പോഴും അതിന് ഇത്ര ഒരു സാന്നിധ്യം ഉള്ളതെന്നാണ്?
I am answering in Malayalam. Shashikumar sir will translate in English.
Hopefully, yeah.
കഴിഞ്ഞ ദിവസം കേരളത്തിലൊരു സംഭവം ഉണ്ടായി. നിങ്ങൾ ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചു കാണാം. കേരളത്തിലെ ദേവസ്വം ബോർഡ് മിനിസ്റ്റർ ഒരു കണ്ണൂരിലുള്ള ഒരു ക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ ചെന്നു. ക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ ചെന്നപ്പോൾ ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ മെയിൻ പൂജാരി അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ വിളക്ക് ദേവസ്വം മിനിസ്റ്ററെ കൊടുത്തില്ല. കാരണം അദ്ദേഹത്തെ തൊട്ടാൽ അൺടച്ചബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ടാകും എന്നുള്ളതായിരുന്നു.
Recently there was a phenomenon in Kerala, some of you might have seen it. A Devaswam minister went to a temple in Kannur and the priest would not give him the lamp, personally, because he said if he did that, he would have become impure by virtue of touching the Devaswam minister. Devaswam minister obviously is not of the same caste. Yeah.
ഒക്ടോബർ 18 കേരള ദേവസ്വം റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റ് ബോർഡ് ഒരു നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻ ഇറക്കി. ആ നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷനിൽ പറയുന്നത് ഗുരുവായൂർ ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ പാചകക്കാരനായിരിക്കാനുള്ള യോഗ്യത അദ്ദേഹം ജന്മം കൊണ്ടൊരു ബ്രാഹ്മണനായിരിക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതായിരുന്നു.
So there was some board notification on October 18th which says that if you want to be a cook in the Guruvayur temple, a person who cooks in the temple, you should have been a Brahmin by birth. So that's how it's still relevant is what he says.
ഇത് കൂടാതെ കേരള ദേവസ്വം റിക്രൂട്ട്മെൻറ്റ് മറ്റൊരു നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻ ഇറക്കി. കൂടൽമാണിക്യം ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ 2 കീഴ്ശാന്തിക്കാരെ വേണം. അവർ നമ്പൂതിരിമാരായിരിക്കണം. നമ്പൂതിരിമാരായിരുന്നാൽ മാത്രം പോരാ, അവർ ശുഗപുരത്തെയും പെരുവനത്തെയും ആ 2 ഗ്രാമങ്ങളിലുള്ള നമ്പൂതിരിമാർ മാത്രമേ പാടുള്ളൂ എന്ന് കൂടൽമാണിക്യം ദേവസ്വത്തിൻ്റെ നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷനിൽ പറയുന്നു.
Another temple, Kudalmanikya Kshetram, Kudalmanikya temple, notification for
Kishanti.
Male Shanti. So they should be not only Brahmins but also from particular villages. So it's a kind of lineage that is honored here.
ഇപ്പോഴും കേരളത്തിലെ വളരെ ഫേമസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളൊരു ക്ഷേത്രമാണ് ശബരിമല ടെമ്പിൾ. ശബരിമല ക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ ഇപ്പോഴും അവിടെ മേൽശാന്തിയുടെ ഇൻ്റർവ്യൂവിന് ക്ഷണിക്കുമ്പോൾ മേൽശാന്തി ഒരു മലയാള ബ്രാഹ്മണനായിരിക്കണമെന്നാണ് നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻ ഇപ്പോഴും ദേവസ്വം ബോർഡ് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്.
The Shabarimala temple, which you all have heard of, the chief priest of that temple should be
Malayalam Brahmin.
Malayali Brahmin. It should be a Malayali Brahmin. That's the prescription. So that when they call for nominations or innovative applications, he should be a Malayali Brahmin. So it's so specific.
ഇത് കൂടാതെ കേരളത്തിലെ ദേവസ്വം ബോർഡിന് കീഴിലുള്ള നിരവധി ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിൽ ഇപ്പോഴും പ്രസാദം എറിഞ്ഞാണ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്.
In Kerala, in temples, the pujari, the male shanti, after he does the puja, he will not give the prasadam in your hand. He'll throw it into your palm because he can't touch you.
ഇത് കൂടാതെ കഴിഞ്ഞ 2 വർഷത്തിനുള്ളിൽ കേരളത്തിലൊരു സംഭവം ഉണ്ടായത്. ദേവസ്വം ബോർഡിന് കീഴിലുള്ള ഒരു ഫേമസ് ക്ഷേത്രമാണ് ചെട്ടുകുളങ്ങര ദേവീക്ഷേത്രം. ചെട്ടുകുളങ്ങര ദേവീക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ ഈഴവ ജാതിയിൽപ്പെട്ട ഒരു കീഴ്ശാന്തി അപ്പോയിൻമെൻറ്റ് കിട്ടി ചെട്ടുകുളങ്ങര ദേവീക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെത്തി. പക്ഷേ അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ശ്രീകോവിലിൽ പ്രവേശിപ്പിച്ചില്ല.
So So recently, the Nirava, so lower caste, became a male Shanti and went to the temple, but they did not allow him into the sanctum area, right?
കേരളത്തിലെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിലൊന്നും തന്നെ അബ്രാഹ്മണ പൂജാരിമാരെ നിയമിക്കുന്നില്ല.
No temple in Kerala has a non-Brahmin as a pujari. Unlike in Tamil Nadu, as you know, there are even women are now becoming pujari.
അബ്രാഹ്മണ ശാന്തിമാരുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ അവരൊക്കെ തന്നെ അപ്രധാനമായ ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിലാണ്.
They are there nominally, but in lesser known temples, not in the main temples.
ധാരാളം വരുമാനമുള്ള ശബരിമലയും ഗുരുവായൂരും പോലെയുള്ള ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിലൊക്കെ തന്നെ ബ്രാഹ്മണരാണ് അതിൻ്റെ കുത്തകാധികാരം ഇപ്പോഴും കൈവകാശാവകാശം വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്.
So famous temples like Shabarimala, Guruvayur all have Brahmins. That's a kind of hereditary kind of right or a legacy that's maintained.
ഇതാണ് സനാതന ധർമ്മം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഈ സനാതന ധർമ്മം ഇപ്പോഴും നമ്മുടെ സമൂഹത്തിൽ നിലനിൽക്കുകയാണ്. മഹാരാഷ്ട്രയിലൊക്കെ ചെന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഇപ്പോഴും മഹാരാഷ്ട്രയിലാവട്ടെ തമിഴ്നാട്ടിലാവട്ടെ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ വ്യത്യസ്ത പ്രദേശങ്ങളിൽ ദളിതർക്ക് പ്രവേശനമില്ലാത്ത ഒരുപാട് ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങൾ ഇന്നും ഇന്ത്യയിലുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് ഈ ബ്രാഹ്മണ ധർമ്മം, സനാതന ധർമ്മം എന്നു പേരുള്ള ബ്രാഹ്മണ ധർമ്മം ഇപ്പോഴും അതിജീവിക്കുന്നതിൻ്റെ ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ലക്ഷണമാണ്.
So this is what Sanatana Dharma is. Even unlike in Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu, you'll find this is still prevalent there. And he didn't say this, but imagine this is in a so-called progressive state like Kerala, which has 100% literacy, where communists are in power in alternate years. So you can imagine what this situation is probably in other places.
അതായത് ബ്രാഹ്മണർ അത് റൂൾ ചെയ്ത് നടപ്പിലാക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതല്ല പ്രശ്നം, മറിച്ച് പൊതുസമൂഹത്തിനാകമാനം വർണ്ണാശ്രമത്തിൽ ഇപ്പോഴും വിശ്വാസമുണ്ടെന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഏറ്റവും പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട പ്രശ്നം. അത് ബ്രാഹ്മണ ധർമ്മം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സനാതന ധർമ്മം അതിജീവിക്കുന്നതിന് പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാരണം പൊതുസമൂഹത്തിന് ബ്രാഹ്മണ്യത്തിലും വർണ്ണാശ്രമ ധർമ്മത്തിലുമുള്ള വിശ്വാസം കാരണമാണ്.
So the direct answer to your question, why is it still prevalent or surviving? Because the society at large still believes in the Varnashramam, believes in the Varna system. Otherwise this would not be prevalent as an...
ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം മാത്രം അതിലേക്കായിട്ട് പറയാം. കേരളത്തിലെ ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിൽ ഇപ്പോഴും ബ്രാഹ്മണർക്ക് കാലുകഴുകിച്ചൂട്ട് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. കാലുകഴുകിച്ചൂട്ട് അതിന് കാരണം ബ്രാഹ്മണരെ കാലുകഴുകിച്ചൂട്ടിയാൽ സന്താനങ്ങളുണ്ടാകും, ബ്രാഹ്മണരെ കാലുകഴുകിച്ചൂട്ടിയാൽ ഉദ്ദിഷ്ടകാര്യം നടക്കും, തൊഴിൽ തടസ്സം മാറും, മംഗല്യ തടസ്സം മാറും എന്നുള്ള വിശ്വാസം ഇപ്പോഴും നമ്മുടെ സമൂഹത്തിൽ നിലനിൽക്കുന്നു.
Now in Kerala, in temples, there is this whole issue of, this custom of washing the feet of the Brahmin and feeding, that's supposed to be good for the children, good for getting children, and so on and so forth. All blessings are there in that. So these practices are still there, widely. They are not exceptions. Okay.
Thank you.
Kritika, then in that order. Kritika, yeah, go for it. Sharp, precise question, please. Mic is coming, yeah.
My question was for Patricia, ma'am. You were talking about conflict reporting. So the Press Club of India, the guidelines, not very clear, but they say that you should not mention the name of the communities involved when specifically when there is a violence taking place, as it can be provocative and more. But what we have also observed is that this can lead to a lot of biased reporting, one-sided reporting, and this comes in the way of the full facts coming out. So how should journalists navigate this space then? Press Council, sorry.
See, many of us do not know what the Press Council says from time to time because their notifications don't even reach us. But I think it's important for media schools to do kind of a situational analysis, to do a role play kind of thing, so that because it's only when you do that you really understand. And in this country with so many ethnic diversities, even beyond the Northeast, we should really know how to report the conflict in a manner that we give voice to both sides. Because it shouldn't be that because we are, I'm sorry for citing Manipur as the example, all the journalists land in Imphal. From there, you're trying to report what's happening in the hills. You're not even aware of the condition there, of the kind of situation in the relief camps. So how do you report? Recently, NDTV did a story, I think it was last Sunday, and the person was reporting only from Imphal and Churachandpur. And then in Imphal, so women in these relief camps were already given the looms with which they can weave because they are a weaving community. Nothing of that has happened in the hills. So how do we, how can we make that a balanced report?
Too many questions. I'm afraid we don't have time. I think we should keep it for another day, and also can write to her as she said yesterday. And so I'll take one last question from, okay, Prithvish gets the last question now. Prithvish, speak loudly, man.
Sir, you said, thank you. Sir, you said that the caste system in Kerala is based on land ownership, which is very different from the caste system from the Chaturvarna system of the North India. Sir, can you please explain that how it is different and if it is a progressive form or a much more regressive form of caste system that is followed in Kerala?
വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനാണ്.
It's a very important question.
കേരളത്തിലെ ജാതി വ്യവസ്ഥയുടെ ഒരു പ്രത്യേകത, കേരളത്തിലെ മധ്യകാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ നിലനിന്ന ക്ഷേത്ര പൗരോഹിത്യം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഭൂമിയുടെ വിതരണ ക്രമവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
So in Kerala in the Middle Ages,
ക്ഷേത്ര പൗരോഹിത്യം,
the temple പൗരോഹിത്യം എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ priesthood. Kerala priesthood was based on land ownership, on land.
ഒരു ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ ഒരു പുരോഹിതനെ നിയമിക്കുന്നത് അയാൾക്ക് മാസാമാസം ശമ്പളം കൊടുത്തുകൊണ്ടല്ല മധ്യകാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ ഈ ക്ഷേത്ര പൗരോഹിത്യം നിലനിന്നത്. പകരം ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ പുരോഹിതന് ഒരു നിശ്ചിത കാലത്തേക്ക്, ചിലപ്പോൾ ആജീവനാന്ത കാലത്തേക്ക് അയാൾക്ക് ഭൂമി പതിച്ചു കൊടുത്തുകൊണ്ടാണ്. അതിന് വിരുത്തി എന്നാണ് ആ സിസ്റ്റത്തിൻ്റെ പേര്, വിരുത്തി. അങ്ങനെ വിരുത്തിയായി ഈ ബ്രാഹ്മണ പുരോഹിതന് ഭൂമി കൊടുത്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഒരാളെ പുരോഹിതനായി ആ ക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ നിയമിക്കുന്നത്.
So in that time, the priests were not paid salaries. They were given the rights to cultivate the land land leased out to them, with rights to cultivate for a period of time. So that's how the land relationship and the priestly class in the land, the relationship develops.
അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഈ ഭൂമി പാരമ്പര്യമായി കൈമാറ്റം ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്നു. ഒരു ബ്രാഹ്മണന് ഒരു ഭൂമി കിട്ടിയാൽ അയാളുടെ മകന് പോകും, അയാളുടെ മകന് പോകും. അങ്ങനെ ആ ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ പുരോഹിതനായിരിക്കുന്ന ആ കുടുംബത്തിന് ആ പാരമ്പര്യം തുടർന്ന് വരുന്ന, ആ പാരമ്പര്യത്തിൻ്റെ കണ്ണി അറ്റുപോകുന്നത് വരെ ആ ഭൂമിയുടെ കൈകാര്യകർത്താക്കൾ ആ കുടുംബത്തിലുള്ളവർ തന്നെയായിരിക്കും.
So this right to the land is carried over by successive generations of the priest, because his son then becomes a priest. So there's that right to be the priest, and therefore the land also for several generations continue to be held by the same priest family.
കേരളത്തിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ രണ്ട് തരത്തിൽ മാത്രമേ ഭൂമി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നുള്ളൂ, ദേവസ്വവും ബ്രഹ്മസ്വവും.
There were only two classifications of such land, Devaswam and Brahmaswam.
ദേവസ്വം ഭൂമി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ദേവൻ്റെ സ്വത്താണ്, ക്ഷേത്രത്തിലെ ദേവൻ്റെ സ്വത്താണ്. ആ സ്വത്തിൻ്റെയും അധികാരി ബ്രാഹ്മണൻ തന്നെയാണ്. ബ്രഹ്മസ്വം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ബ്രാഹ്മണന്റെ വ്യക്തിപരമായ സ്വത്താണ്, അതിൻ്റെയും അധികാരി ബ്രാഹ്മണൻ തന്നെയാണ്.
So Devaswam is the land belonging to the god, but the trustee the trustee of that is a Brahman. Brahmaswam is the Brahman's own land. So in either case, both the land belong to the Brahman.
കേരളത്തിലെ കൃഷിഭൂമി മുഴുവൻ തന്നെ ദേവസ്വത്തിൻ്റെയോ ബ്രഹ്മസ്വത്തിൻ്റെയോ കീഴിലായിരുന്നു.
The entire agricultural land in Kerala was either belonging to these two categories, Brahmaswam or Devaswam. In short, in the Brahman stranglehold.
അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഈ കേരളത്തിലെ ഈ ദേവസ്വവും ബ്രഹ്മസ്വവുമായ ഭൂമികളിൽ പുലയർ, പറയർ മുതലായ ഔട്ട്കാസ്റ്റസായി കരുതപ്പെട്ടിരുന്ന ജാതി വിഭാഗങ്ങളെ കൊണ്ട് പണിയെടുപ്പിച്ച് മാത്രമാണ്, അവർ അധ്വാനം ചൂഷണം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ പൗരോഹിത്യം അതിജീവിച്ചു വന്നത്.
So the other caste, lower caste like Pulayar, Parayar, their job was to just cultivate, work on this land as laborers, and that's how traditionally the arrangement, the equation has been.
അവർക്കാകട്ടെ ഒരു സ്ഥിരവാസ ഭൂമി കൊടുത്തിരുന്നില്ല, അവർക്ക് സ്വന്തമായി ഭൂമി കൊടുത്തിരുന്നില്ല. അവർക്ക് അന്നന്ന് കഴിയാനുള്ള നാഴി അരി മാത്രമാണ് കൊടുത്തിരുന്നത്.
They did not have any right to own land or cultivate land. They only got daily sustenance, enough food to eat per day. That is it.
ഇങ്ങനെ ഭൂമിയുടെ അധികാരികളായി ബ്രാഹ്മണർ മാത്രം മാറിയ ഒരു സിസ്റ്റമാണ് 19ാം നൂറ്റാണ്ട് ഉത്തരാർത്ഥം വരെ കേരളം അനുഭവിച്ചു വന്നത്.
Well, until 19th century, this is how the Kerala situation was in terms of ownership of the land, totally under the hold of the Brahmins.
ഇത് മറ്റൊരു സങ്കല്പത്തിലൂടെയാണ് ഇത് ശക്തമായി വന്നത്. ബ്രാഹ്മണർക്ക് ഭൂമി ദാനം കൊടുക്കുന്നത് പുണ്യകർമ്മമാണെന്നും പാപം നീങ്ങുന്നതിന് അത് ഉചിതമാണെന്നും ഭാഗവത പുരാണം പോലെയുള്ള പുരാണങ്ങളിലൂടെയും ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളിൽ നടന്നു വരുന്ന മഹാഭാരത പട്ടത്താനം മുതലായ ചടങ്ങുകളിലൂടെയും ബ്രാഹ്മണർക്ക് ദാനം നൽകുന്ന ഈ പ്രക്രിയയെ ബ്രാഹ്മണർ തന്നെ പ്രചരിപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ടും ഇരുന്നു.
So, traditionally and through ritualistic forms and authoritative texts, it was destined, or it was understood, that donating land to Brahmins was a pious act, was an act of redemption, was an act of, of shall we say, liberation for the, and therefore it was reinforced. This custom was reinforced by that kind of belief.
ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം അതിലേക്ക് പറയാം. കേരളത്തിൽ വളരെ പ്രചാരത്തിലിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു പാട്ടാണ് കുചേലവൃത്തം വഞ്ചിപ്പാട്ട്. ആ കുചേലവൃത്തം വഞ്ചിപ്പാട്ടിൽ പറയുന്നത്, കുചേലൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ബ്രാഹ്മണൻ ശ്രീകൃഷ്ണനെ കാണാൻ വരികയാണ്. കുചേല ബ്രാഹ്മണന്റെ ദാരിദ്ര്യം കണ്ട് കൃഷ്ണൻ സർവ്വ അനുഗ്രഹവും കൊടുക്കുന്നതായിട്ടാണ് ഭാഗവതത്തിൽ പറയുന്നത്.
So an example is that Kujela Vrittam, where Kuchela, the story that comes to Krishna and then Krishna gives him benefices. I mean, yeah.
പക്ഷേ
But
സംസ്കൃതത്തിൽ എഴുതപ്പെട്ട ഒരു പുസ്തകത്തിലും തന്ത്രഗ്രന്ഥങ്ങളിലും ഇതിഹാസ പുരാണങ്ങളിലും ഒരു കീഴ്ജാതിക്കാരന്, ഒരു പാവപ്പെട്ടവന്, ഒരു ദരിദ്രന് ദാനം കൊടുക്കണമെന്ന് പറയുന്നേയില്ല.
But in none of the Sanskrit texts is it ever mentioned that lesser, one of lower caste should be given, dhanam or donation like this or grant like this.
അങ്ങനെ ഈ വൃത്തികെട്ട ഹീനമായ സങ്കല്പത്തിലൂടെയാണ് ഭൂമിയുടെ അധികാരികളായി 19ാം നൂറ്റാണ്ട് ഉത്തരാർത്ഥം വരെ ഈ ബ്രാഹ്മണ്യം അതിജീവിച്ചു വന്നത്.
So it is in this infamous and this lowly kind of belief that the Brahmins perpetuated their hold on the land in Kerala.
ഇപ്പോഴും ഇത് തുടരുകയാണ്. കേരളത്തിലെ ഭൂമിയുടെ വിതരണക്രമം പരിശോധിച്ചാൽ ഇപ്പോഴും കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ഭൂമി സവർണ ജാതി വിഭാഗങ്ങളാണ് കൈയടക്കി വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്നതെന്ന് നമുക്ക് പഴയ 1968 മുതലുള്ള 1968 സെൻസസ് വിവരങ്ങൾ ഒരു ഗവേഷണ പ്രബന്ധമായിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ മുമ്പിലുണ്ട്. 68 ഗവേഷണ പ്രബന്ധം തെളിയിക്കുന്നത് കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ഭൂമിയുടെ ഭൂരിപക്ഷവും കൈയിരിക്കുന്നത് സവർണജാതി വിഭാഗങ്ങൾ ആണെന്നാണ് വ്യക്തമാകുന്നത്.
Even after the land reform.
അതെ.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Even after land reform, there was a radical land reform movement in Kerala under the communist government and so on. But he says even now, 68% of the land in Kerala is under the custody, under the control of the upper caste.
അതിനൊരു തെളിവ് മാത്രം ഞാൻ പറയാം. കേരളത്തിൽ 28,000-ത്തിലധികം ദളിത് കോളനികളുണ്ട്. അത്തരം ഒരു കോളനി മറ്റൊരു ജാതി വിഭാഗത്തിനും കേരളത്തിലില്ല.
There are as many as 28,000 Dalit colonies in Kerala. That kind of, there's no such similar situation elsewhere in India. In such a small strip that Kerala, you have 28,000 Dalit colonies. Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right. I'll just take 1 minute to connect the dots, just to say that in the presentation so far we have seen a thread that runs through, which is the embedded inequity in these things and how they are being perpetuated. It connects religion, the role of the state, the society, and I think it's deeply troubling, and most of us, many of us hear this very often, that there is no caste. Caste is becoming weak and it's not relevant in your lives and all that. I don't know which world we are living in. Here I can see that it's, it's so profoundly impacting everything, and all the, the data, statistics, anecdotal evidence, research by the presentations, it once again makes it very clear that there's a lot more to be done to dismantle and annihilate caste.